Close the doors of your mind from all carnal will, all carnal thought, all emotions, all desires, all fears, all laziness, all doubt, all complaining, all mumbling, all grumbling, and bring your mind to balance within, in the center of your mind. Your cranial nerves and your pineal and your hypothalamus and your hippothalamus and your pituitary, your axons and dendrites, your hands and your feet, and all the attributes of this sentient vessel and this nefesh that you dwell in, this body you dwell inside. And bring it to balance and bring it into subjection into the highest order of Yahushua Mashiach, the highest one who sits in the highest Shamy'n with his father, Yahuwah Elohim, who sits in the highest Shamy'n. And bring your thoughts into alignment, that you may judge properly within yourself. For today is the day of freedom. Today is the day of warning. Today is the day that Yahuwah has given to us as a gift for us to rest our consciousness and our thoughts from selfish self, as to present our thoughts that we may be yielded up, that we may yield up fruit that may be pleasing to our Father every single month. So this day we acknowledge the one who allows us to ride on the wings of the wind on the clouds. Even as a cloud rolls by, as a jet stream pulls through, and a storm and a hurricane runs through, and the time of visitation will take place. Whether it's rain showers, whether it's smooth mist, or whether it's a windstorm and destruction. For Yahuwah Elohim does all things. He gives and he takes away. He wounds and kills and makes alive. He is the maker of the rich and the poor. He gives consciousness to male and female. He gives them a speaking ruach within, that he may enlighten the eyes of each other, of men and women, mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers and their children, that the seed may continue on, a righteous seed, of purity of mind and purity of thought, that no longer will man walk in the imagination of his own heart, but according to that one seed that was sent from the highest Shamy'n to the earth to be planted here, that one may yield the increase of knowledge and understanding and wisdom, and be able to speak da'ah out of his mouth. So this yom, as we move forward in kindness, ahab, joy, peace, patience, meekness, temperance, and munah. We move forward in forgiveness and mercy, not only for ourselves and for others, but we will no wise clear the guilty. Even as our Father doesn't clear the guilty and he forgives sins, transgressions, and iniquities, we will not clear the guilty. For if one is found guilty, then you have the chance to change before you travel to the next life, before you travel to the next world, before you travel to meet your Maker, the one who made all things. So this is a tree. When we look at trees as a reflection of our lives, we look at a reflection of our transitions through life. And we start off, and each season will change. When we look at the actual four seasons, or how you say they will call the 4 seasons, but we look at early summer, late summer, early winter, late winter. There are things that take place within a tree. You have certain things that take place. It starts off green, and that comes through rain. That comes through the actual rain clouds, the storm clouds, and the actual absorption of it in the soil. Then you go through early winter when the cold season starts happening. When the cold season starts happening, you start going through the transition time, and that's when you go through the transition times, that's when you start to see the colors change. You start to see the colors change. And you start seeing the beauty of it as you sit right in the midst of the transition time. And you start to see, people see it as like, why is it red? Why is it change color? And you start to see the transition of life. You start seeing the transitions of life as you go through the portal. And as you transfer from the first portal to the fourth portal, you start seeing the transitions that take place. Then it gets colder. Then it starts to transition to the colder seasons, and then things start to die, because this symbolizes what? The transition from early winter to late winter. And this is what happens in late winter. the leaves start to fall, and the trees start to yield and to cast away what is ready to die. And what is ready to die. Why? Because all the leaves on the ground is fertilizer for the tree for next year. So what do we have in our life that we need to let go of, that's ready to die? Let it fall off, that it may be fertilizer for your elevation and your growth next year. Because we're in that time right now. Because that elevation will take place based upon what you let go and let die, and what leaves you let fall to the ground, that it may be fertilizer for your roots, that you may spring forth. So this is the book of Qahalath, Qahalath 3, 1 through 8. For everything there is a season, or a zaman, and a time for every matter under Shamy'n. So every single matter, anything that you see under Shamy'n, whether it's the planetary alignments, whether it's the movement of the cosmos, the Shamy'ny Chdash in the yard, whether you see the movements of birds and animals and creatures, they move from one place to another, or the pelicans move from south to the north in northern Canada during the actual winter time, the summertime, right? You see certain migrations of animals and all types of beings, right? During a time when there's no food and food to consume. Why? Because there's a season for everything, the time to move. It says a time for every matter under Shamy'n. So anything that you see, whether it's a time to be awake and a time to sleep, there's a time for that. Verse 2 says a time, it says a eighth, so we know it's a time, eighth to be born, so everybody was born, if you're listening, you've been born, and a time to die. There's a time to die too, just like those trees on the actual leaf. It's a transition time, going from a green to a red, beautiful red, to a dead tree. It's a time to die, right? This time, if you're in the winter time, going into late winter, I said it's time for things to die in your life. It's time for things to move down to a lower state in your life and hit the ground, that you may elevate in the coming season, right? And also it says, go right here and it says, a time to plant in the top, and a time to pluck up what is planted. So you look at even the winter time, not only trees, leaves die, but also the things you planted in your garden or in your field. There are certain things you got to pluck up and take out of your garden. Why? Because you're getting ready to plant for next season. So you have to go in your garden, and you have a fallow ground. So say you have a piece of land that you haven't touched, but it's running around with weeds and all types of plants, and it's not organized. You got to go through and pluck it up. If you're getting ready to plant there, you got to get ready. You got to go through and weed out. You got to go and get all the stones out of the ground. Why? Because that's the whole point. And these are all the attributes of what this time represents as we transition out. A time to pluck up what is planted, or in the top, right? So look at that word for a time. It says that word for pluck up is akar. It means to pluck up, to root up, to cut, to exterminate. What do you mean exterminate? You say, why would I exterminate something in my heart, in my mind? He said it's time to exterminate it. You know, they have an exterminator to get rats and bugs, and some houses are overrun with bugs, some houses are overrun with rats and mice. Why? Because the house is filthy. That's the only reason the house is overrun with bugs and rats. Because you gotta call it exterminator, because your house is filthy. So look at within yourself. He said, what do I need to get out of myself, exterminate within myself? Or he said to pluck up, to root up in my field, in my consciousness and in my mind and in my body. Right? People talk about purification. Right? We talk about let us cleanse ourselves, 1 Corinthians, what they call, he wrote to Corinth, which is still good for today. Let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and ruah. Why? You got to purify your body. You got to exterminate things. Right? You got to exterminate it. Right? So this is Nazarene Acts of the Shalakim, chapter 16, both good and righteous. Since so many false and radical religions have been introduced into the world, so you got so many different religions and practices that have been introduced into the world, we have been sent as good merchants, right, from a far country. Like you talk about merchant ships, right? We talk about merchants from far, bringing unto you the worship of the true Elohim Yahuwah, handed down from our fathers and preserved as the seeds of which we scatter these among you, and place it in your choice to choose what seems to be right. He said, choose ye this day whom you're going to serve. Choose what you're going to choose. Right? Many are called, but few will choose. He says, for if you receive those things which we bring you receive those things that we bring you, will not only be able to yourselves to escape the incursions of demons, but also to drive them away from others. And at the same time, you will attain the reward of ageless good things. But those who refuse to receive those things that are spoken by us will be subject to in the present life to diverse demons of disorders of sicknesses in their spirits. After their departure from their body will be tormented forever. For Yahuwah is not only good, but also just. So if you want to escape all these spirits and demons, right? Because that's all it is. When you see a dead tree, what do you see? Snakes, bugs, and bats. If you go into the forest, that's what you're going to see. So if you want to escape the incursions of demons, you got to get ready. You got to get rid of the things within your heart and your mind, and you got to pluck up what's been planted. It says right here, for if he were always good and never just, to render to everyone according to his deeds what you do, goodness would not be found to be injustice. So he renders things that for you that are just, and for what you do that is just and unjust. And these are your deeds, and this is your harvest. What did you do up until this point? How many times? What did you do up until this point? For if it were injustice, if the disobedient and the obedient were treated by him alike. So he treats the disobedient a certain way and the obedient a certain way. Right? It has to be that way. But it says, wisdom of Shalom at ODE 8:8-13. Hear the word of truth and receive the knowledge of Yahuwah. Your flesh may not understand what I'm about to say to you. So we look at our flesh and our blood. We look in the mirror. Our skin color. It doesn't matter what skin color you are. It doesn't matter what country you from or land mass you from. He said your flesh is not going to understand what I'm about to say to you. Know your garments that which I am about to declare to you. So you got your clothes, your different garments, your clothes from your different cultures and places where you go to. Whether you wear a robe or tunic or you don't. Whether you wear a hair wrap or you don't. Whether you look at a person who wears a hijab or they don't. Or a person who walks down the street and is homeless on the side of the road who can't afford it. You can't afford your fine things and your luxuries, right? He said, your flesh and your garments ain't about understand what I'm about to say to you. He says, keep the mystery, you who are kept by it. Keep my amuna, you who are kept by it. So anybody who's kept by it, keep it. And understand my knowledge. You got to understand it. You who know me in truth. Love me with affection, you who love. Right? If you love, he said, love with affection. He said, if you know me, he said, love me. For I turn not my face from my own because I know them. That's what he said, why would he say he know them? Because I know who you are. And before they had existed, I recognized them and imprinted a seal on their faces. I fashioned their members as in my own breast I prepared for them, just like a mother nursing a child, that they may drink my Kudash milk and live by it. I am pleased by them, and I am not ashamed by them. For my work are they, and they are the power of my thoughts. So anything you worked in your life, that's the power of your thoughts, whether it's good or evil. So if you go from your life from the time you came into consciousness of how old you are, or you can speak words, everything that you did was all the power of your thoughts, and all the works you did up until this point in your life is all the power of what you thought and what you created in your life by your thoughts. And you see how powerful thoughts are. Aleph Kaf, 1 Peter 1:2-1. So put away all malice. Right, so we look at all the power of our thoughts. It says, so put away all malice. So we look at malice and the intentions to do evil, and all deceit. That's the intention to deceive, and hypocrisy. That's fake pretending, and envy. Envy is what you say. I'm envying somebody. I want the qualities of somebody else. I want what they have, and all slander. And we're gonna talk about these things. Like newborn infants long for the pure spiritual milk. So you gotta put all those things away, and then long for then you'll be a newborn infant. which means you're a grown adult if you got malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander. You are a grown adult. You have not, being born again. It says, like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, that by it you may grow up into salvation. Just like those leaves that fall to the tree, that hit the ground and hit the soil. It's just ready to die. That's malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander hitting the ground. That's your actual elevation of your tree. That's the elevation and growth. When you get rid of that and let it fall to the ground and ready to die, then that's your elevation. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, that you may grow up into salvation. Why? Because he says, I'll never turn my face in them unknown. The people he's going to turn his face from are malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander. Because he don't know you. That's why he just said, he said, we done many marvelous works in your name. We nodded in your name, prophesied in your name, done many marvelous things. He said, I never knew you. Because you had malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander while you did your works. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, that by it you may grow up into salvation. Verse 3 says, if indeed you have tasted that Yahuwah is good. So if you've tasted that Yahuwah is good, you long for the pure spiritual milk, and you long to grow up into salvation. And you've put away slander, envy, hypocrisy, deceit, and malice, if you've tasted that Yahuwah is good. Right? If you have. Right? So remember, Romans 12:2 says, do not conform to the pattern of this world. So you look at the pattern of the world. Jealousy, envy, strife, complaining, criticism, pride, hatred. What do they do? Hatred, fornication, adultery, lying. These are all attributes of the patterns of the world. Pretending. Evil purposes. Blackmail. All these are all a part of the world. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, renewing your consciousness. Why? Because the world is trying to pull you into their world. It's like a black hole sucking the light and pulling you into a portal. Renewing your mind, because your consciousness is the power of your thoughts, and what you think is what you're gonna do. You're gonna act upon it if it's continually there. So then you will be able to test and to approve. So you gotta literally don't conform to the world, the patterns that you see, and what you see everybody moving into. Because you see all the patterns and what they're moving into, and then transform yourself and keep renewing your mind, which means being born and renewing your mind every day. So then you'll be able to test and approve, right? So people will try to test and approve what Yahuwah wills is, but they still conform to the patterns of the world. It says his good and pleasing and perfect will. Then you'll understand it. Then you'll be able to approve what Yahuwah's will is. His good and pleasing and perfect will. That's how you're going to do it. But conformity is not something that one should do, right? Because if you conform, then it's going to be a hurt for you. Ode Shaloma. 1. Open your hearts. Open the exaltation of Yahuwah, and let your love, ahab, abound in your hearts to your lips. So your mind, your conscience, your lay to your lips, and allow it to pour forth out, in order to bring forth fruits to Yahuwah a Kudash life. So it says, speak these words when we sit in the house, we walk by the way, just like Yahushua, when we lie down, when we lay in the bed, and when we rise up. Why? He said conversations laying in the bed is a good thing. Conversation when you're walking by the way, in the trees, in the forest, and all the animals is a good thing. Conversation when you rise up is a good thing. All these are all a part of a Kedush life. Let your love go from your mouth to your lips. Whoever you love, you're going to talk about it constantly. Like, man, you're going to talk about it constantly. It's like a certain love. Like, man, this person's amazing. This person has an attribute that I love, and I just can't stop thinking about it. It says, and to speak with watchfulness in his light. So just like how you're saying, when you're watching, you're speaking, you're talking while you sit in the house, walk by, when you lie down, you rise up, you're talking, you're speaking. Whether it's 2 or 3, 5, 10, 15, 1, or just you just walking yourself, you're just talking constantly. It's always there. It says, stand and be established, you who were once brought low. So those who were brought low, he said, you put away malice, hatred, envy, jealousy, all these attributes that Yahuwah hates. You're brought low. Now he's telling you to do what? You who are in silence, speak. For your mouth has been opened, because it was closed before. You couldn't say anything. Verse 5 says, you who were despised, from hence be raised. For your righteousness has been raised. Right? So you saying being despised. These are people despise you. Right? I can remember going through in sports where I was penciled in as a starting, as a starting position for a team that will have some of the best players in the whole conference. And I was despised. Why? Because I outplayed every single person for that one spot, that position. And then what did they do? I was penciled in. They even told me that I was the starter. And then what happened? The person came up complaining, mumbling, grumbling, complaining that he felt that he should be there. And he went up to the head people and they talked to him and they said, I don't know what he said, but then they came back the next day and said I wasn't the starter anymore, even though I outplayed all of them and I deserved it. But I was despised. Right? People saying, how do you know when you're despised? But I had in my consciousness, on my thoughts, I knew that that person was not better than me, but at the same time, I was despised. These are all I'm saying, why do these things happen? So today I can say these things. You who are despised, from henceforth be raised. For your righteousness has been raised. Because everybody that's in positions, in roles, didn't do what's right to get there. They didn't work hard to get it. And they're not better than the other person that was despised. He said, you are raised. For the right hand of Yahuwah is with you. You got to believe it. And he will be your helper. You have to believe that. And shalom was prepared for you before what may be your war. Peace was made for you. So you have peace within. It's already been prepared for you. You say, what do you mean the teachings of peace? This information and knowledge has already been prepared for you before you were even born. The war that you won within yourself, this shalom has already been prepared for you. So now all those things happen to me. This is already prepared for you. It's already prepared for you before what may be your war. Right? So this wisdom of Shalom, Kukumashi Shalom 6:12-25. Wisdom is glorious and never fadeth away. It never fades. Yea, she is easily seen of them that love her. And so you love. And found such as seek, or Darash. We talk about Darash so many times. I'm not going to mention it again. Because why? Because seek with care, prayer and worship, studying. That's how you're going to find it. She prevented them that desire her. Why? You ain't going to make it easy. I'm going to run around the track 2 laps. And then I got 2 more. Your mind want to quit. But wisdom after 4 laps, like 4 corners of the earth. Like 4 transition times. Right, like a car, like 364. You gotta go 4 laps around to get there. 1 for each quadrant. It says, she prevented them that desire her and making herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail. So you're gonna have no great travail. For he shall find her sitting at his door. You're gonna find her sitting at the doors. To think thereupon her is perfection of wisdom. And whoso watcheth for her quickly will be without care. Now you're going to be without care. For she goeth about seeking such as are worthy of her, showeth herself favorably in the ways, and meeteth them in every thought. Why? It's the power of your thoughts, your consciousness, your makashaba. And we know what makashaba equals to 13, and we know that 13 equals to what? Yahushua Mashiach and Akkad. In a 364-day cycle. It's the power of your makashif over 364 days. Or you say like 4 laps around a track. It's your makashif. Every single thought. Right? Talim, Psalms 125, 1-2. Those who trust in Yahuwah are like Mount Sion. You trust in Yahuwah, you just like a mountain. You go to a mountain range, a hillside, a Selah, like we talked about before, which cannot be moved. You can't move it. The only person who can move that mountain is Yahuwah. With his word, he Yahushua Mashiach. And Amunah. He says, which cannot be moved, but abides forever. Man, it abides forever. As the mountains surround Jerusalem, so it surrounds Jerusalem as protection, so Yahuwah surrounds his people. From this time and forevermore. He's surrounding his people. his and they say his aim. He's surrounding his people. Word for trust is batak. He's surrounding those who trust, who have confidence, who are confident within them, who will be confident, to be bold, to be secure, to see him as a refuge, who are sure, and who are not careless. Right? Who are not careless. Who put their confidence in him. Man, who is surrounding you? He is surrounding you. Right? He's surrounding you. Right? You know how I say you're surrounded. He said, yeah, I understand. You may surround me, but you don't know who surrounds you. Because I'm surrounded too. It ain't because you say I'm surrounded by people. It's because I'm surrounded by something you can't see. Right? The word for Sa'un, he said, you're going to be like Zion or Sa'un. That word for Zion means parched place. He said, man, you're going to be like a parched place. What do you mean parched? He said, they that trust in Yahuwah are like Mount Sa'un. Man, you like a parched place. What do you mean? What you mean by that? Because the mountain needs water. Because the water flows down the mountain into the ridge where the rivers are. That's where the water's at. But if you're on the mountain, if you're like Mount Sa'un, you're up there, and guess what? It says you are parched. It means dried out, heat, extremely thirsty. And that mountain is thirsty because that mountain needs water. That mountain needs water. Right? So the word for Sa'un, you got the Sa'ad, you got the Yad, the Wu, and the Nun, which equals to what? 156, which equals to 12. How many tribes are there? 12. And this equals to what? 3. 3 to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east, and 3 to the west. How many gates in Jerusalem? He said you're going to be like, what? Jerusalem. As the mountains surround Jerusalem. 3 gates to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east, and 3 to the west. But he said it's really thirsty, man. I'm thirsty. He said, man, you trust in Yahuwah, but you're going to be thirsty. You're going to be thirsty, right? Right. So as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so Yahuwah surrounds his people. So surrounded means sabib. It means place round about, circuit, on every side. It means a circle, a neighbor, a circuit, on every side. And he said, man, I'll surround you like a circle. And you'll be in the inner circle. And you're going to be thirsty in the inner circle. Right, so this is, verse 2 says, well, it says that the mountains surround Jerusalem, so we look at Jerusalem as what? The word for it says Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, it means what? The teachings of peace. As the mountains surround the teaching, he says, the teachings of peace. So if you have the teachings of peace and you trust in you, if you have the teachings of peace and you trust in Yahuwah is surrounding you. He protecting you. He protecting you from all these people and all these adversaries and all these people's words and what they say and what they do. And he said, I'm protecting you. And you need not be afraid of them. It says hills, right? It's just like the hills and peaceful, and it's peaceful. You go to a Selah, you walk in the mountain, and you walk and you see what? You see hillsides and ranges, and it's a peaceful feeling. You go from being in a place of concrete, you be like, man, it's so quiet out here. The air smells better. It smells good. You get to a peaceful state. But you're thirsty though, because you ain't no water. You gotta go down the mountain to get some water. But that's the whole point. Because when you're on a mountain and you're thirsty, you're not thinking about water. When you have the teachings of peace, you're not thinking about those things anymore, because you have the teachings of peace. Right, so when we see the teachings of peace, just like it says, he said, man, you be like Mount Sinai, you be thirsty. But it says Yeshayahu 55:10 through 11. For as rain, or Yeshayahu 55:10 through 11. For as rain and snow come down from Shamy'n and do not return, but water the earth, man, you be like Mount Sinai, you be thirsty. Making it bring forth sprout and giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Natural food, carnal food. So shall my debar be that goes out of my mouth. It's just like rain and snow, man. You thirsty. Man, you trust in Yahuwah, you like Mount Sinai, man. The only person who give me water, you know, people be very specific about their water. They're like, no, I don't want that water. I don't want that water either. I only drink one type of water. Right? I'm very specific. And he real thirsty too, because if they ain't got that water, you ain't gonna drink it. You be like, man, I'm waiting on the other water to come. When that water shipment come in, when that water come in, when that rain coming down, that's gonna flow down the mountain, that's what I'm waiting on. So shall my debar be that goes out of my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose, and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it. Right? He's sending the debar to give water and bread to the seed of the soil, so we can have food. Just like we're in the winter time right now. You gather in your crops, you gather in the seeds too when you pluck up what's planted, because certain plants actually yield a seed kernel that you gather in seeds during this time. So you got to take the seed out, and you got to separate the seeds for the winter. You got to store it up, because certain plants sprout up a seed kernel, so you can actually gather in the seeds during this time as well. It says it shall succeed in what I sent it. Because we know Selah. Seliach, ha-seliach, well, we know that means what? It means to succeed, to push forward. Right? Then you got the Shelach, it means sent. It's going to accomplish what I sent it to do. People are like, man, I'm sent. No, the word is sent. I ain't got nothing to do with it. People put these titles on themselves, they be like, nah, this ain't even got nothing to do with you. It's all about the debar that's sent. I ain't sent. The debar is sent. Right? Cain debar. Cain Yahuwah debar. Right? So shall the debar be that goes out of the mouth. Right? So the word for it says accomplish what I sent it or succeed. Say lock, right? It means to what? To push forward. To advance, to prosper, to make prosperous, to bring to successful issue, to rush. It's going to resolve issues in your life. It's going to give you clarity. Because water clears you up. It clears out what's there. It washes off the impurities. It gives you clarity in what needs to be done. Advance, right? The trees sucking the roots, even the insects suck the water. Even the animals suck the water. The soil sucks the water. The roots suck the water. Everybody's depending on that water. Every attribute of yourself is depending on that water. Yeshayahu 2:1 says the word that Yeshayahu, the son of Amos, saw concerning Yehuda and Jerusalem. He mean the teachings of peace. It says, shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah shall be established in the highest of the mountains. All of the mountains. So you look at that. So you look at the highest mountains in the world. You look at the Himalayas. You look at the mountain peaks. He said it may gonna be established. It's gonna be so peaceful. It may gonna be even higher than the highest mountains. It shall be lifted up above the hills, and all nations shall flow to what? That mountain. Right? Just like Yahushua said. He said, for this call I came into the world. He said, when the Son of Man is lifted up, I'm going to draw all people to myself. Man, I'm going to be lifted up above the mountains, above the highest mountains, above the hills. And all nations going to flow to it. Man, they're going to look at me. All of them. All the people going to look at me. And many peoples will come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahuwah, to the house of Elohim of Yaakov, that they may teach us of his ways, that we may walk in his paths. In whose paths? It said the just shall live by his Amunah in the book of Habakkuk. By whose Amunah? Yahushua Mashiach's Amunah. He said Amunah come by hearing, and hearing by the word of Mashiach, Yahushua. Because Elohim in sundry times and diverse manners spoke by the Nabi'im, but now in these last days he's speaking by his son, Yahushua Mashiach. That all may see and understand that he has now been lifted up above all mountains and hills, even the three hills in Italy, and all the mountains ranges all throughout the whole earth. He's been lifted up. He has. Let's go forward. And guess what he says? It says that he may teach us his ways, and we may walk in his paths. So who paths you walking in? Who paths you walking in? Because you're supposed to only walk in one person's path, in one person's steps, in every aspect of your life. For out of Sa'un shall go forth the Torah. Out of the parched place that's thirstiest, real thirsty, shall go forth the Torah. And the word of Yahuwah from your teaching, from the Jerusalem, how you say, the peaceful place. It's going to go from Jerusalem. Verse 4 says, he shall judge between nations and shall decide disputes. That's what we said water was for. He's going to decide it for many peoples. And they shall, and what's going to happen? Because remember, he said this peace was prepared for you that is currently your war. He said, I'll never turn my face on them, I know. He said, he shall judge between nations and shall decide disputes for many peoples. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears and their pruning hooks. Because why? Nation shall not lift up sword against a nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. Why? Because the teachings of peace, shalom, will spring forth. And they ain't going to learn war anymore. Why? Why would they not learn war anymore? They're not going to be warned. He said, this shalom was prepared for you what may be your war. O house of Yaakov, come, let us walk in the light of Yahuwah. Why? Because you're supposed to be teaching the peace. And he said, he shall what? The word for learn, it says, nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and neither shall they learn war. That word for learn is lamad. It means to learn, to teach. They ain't gonna learn a lamad, to be taught, to be trained. Right? People saying, why are people warring? Why are you warring with people? Why are you warring with another person? Why are you warring with another individual? Why are you warring with another pastor? Warring with another teacher? Warring with another a person down the street? Warring with your husband? Warring with your wife? Warring with your children? Warring with your mother, your father? Warring it because you were lamad it. You were taught it. So who taught it to you? Who taught you to beat who taught you to take your plowshares and your pruning hooks and beat them into swords and knives? It says the exercise is to learn. He said that word for learn, it means you lamad it. Somebody taught it to you. Somebody trained you in it. Right? That word for it, they shall no longer learn war is milkama. They shall no longer learn battle, war, fighting a battle, engagement, warfare. Man, you're going to learn no more warfare. You're not going to be fighting anymore. Because remember, this peace was prepared for you what may be your war. Before, he said, man, I know them and you are the power of my thoughts. He said, they're not going to learn war. They're going to beat their plowshares and their pruning hooks, and nations shall not rise up in nation, and they shall not learn war anymore. So who convinced you to turn your plowshares and pruning hooks into swords? That's a fight. Here we go. Bereshit 2:15-17. And Yahuwah took Adam and put him in the garden. Why? What you do in the garden? You got pruning hooks and you got plows. You got farming tools of Eden to work it and keep it. So that's what he put Adam in the garden to do. He ain't put him in the garden to be warring and fighting. He gave him the tools to till the ground so him and the animals can eat. Because that's what the commandment he gave to his son. And Yahuwah commanded Adam, saying, you may eat of every tree of the garden, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. Who taught you to beat your plowshares and the pruning hooks? The plowshares and your pruning hooks and the swords and knives. Have you eaten from the tree that Yahuwah told you not to eat from? Yes, that's exactly what you did. You ate from the tree that you wasn't supposed to eat from. For in the day you eat of it, you shall surely move, die. You're going to be warned. You're going to war. They that live by the sword, you're going to die by it. Guess what happens? You die. You're going to move. He said the day you eat of it. He said the day you let somebody lamad it to you, to learn it. Now you've become a candidate to die. Because of wars. That's exactly what you see in the world today. That's exactly what you see in households today. That's exactly what you see in communities today. That's exactly what you see in people's minds today. Because you ate from the tree that you wasn't supposed to eat from. So this is, the word for garden is gone. I ain't talking about gone, but it's a protection, it's a fence. It means a garden, a fenced garden. It's protection. Just like a mountain surrounds Jerusalem, so Yahuwah surrounds his people. Just like he surrounds them with Sabi, right? Just like he surrounds them with mountains, the teachings of peace. But who told you to take your plowshares and your pruning hooks and make them into swords and knives? Oh, have you eaten from the tree that I command you not to eat from? Yeah. So somebody lamad it to you. Somebody taught it to you. Yeah. And now you're doing exactly what they taught you. Yeah. In my garden. Right? So you look at the garden, gan equals to 8. We know 8 what? Equals a lot of things. It equals to Yahuwah, the bar, equals to mazun, equals to balances, equals to Allah, equals to a sin. Right? Equals to karim. Right? You look at all the attributes, the Yehudi. Right? You look at all the attributes of it. It equals to Yirah and Malakash. That equals the first and latter rain. It equals to a lot of things. Circumcision of the heart and flesh. He said, man, have you eaten from the tree that I tell you not to eat from? Man, it's time for you to, how you say, circumcise and start to go through my garden and pluck up what is planted in your mind. Right? So Yahuwah took the man and put him in the garden. So he put him in the garden to do what? He put him in the gan. He rested him in the gan. That word for put him is yanak. He settled him down. You know how people say, I'm going to settle down? Why? Because they want peace and quiet in their life. They don't want that stuff. I'm going to settle down. It says to have quiet. What do you mean have quiet? Because it's the teachings of peace. I put you in the garden so you can be quiet. You can have quiet. You can have rest. What today is? A day of rest, right? To cause you to rest. I put you in the garden so you can rest. To make you quiet. Because you were warned. He said this peace was made before what maybe you were warned. Because you ate from the other trees, so therefore, he said, I'm putting you back where you belong. Male and female. He says to set down. He said, I deposited you. So it's like a seed planted. That's what he did. Yanak. He said, I allow you to stay in my garden. Right? Some people have gone out of the garden and travel to the other life. But he said, I'm allowing you to stay today. Testament of Yeshua, chapter 2. I know ye therefore, my children, that in the last times your son will forsake singleness and cleave unto insatiable desire. Insatiableness means what? Never having enough. And leaving guilelessness, which means innocence, you will draw near to malice. And what's one of the things you got to put away? Like Kaf said, put away all malice, hypocrisy, and hatred. He said, you're going to cleave to malice. And forsaking the commandments of Yahuwah. What was the commandment for Adam in the garden? There's a lot of commandments that he gave. A lot of commandments he gave Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But he says, and they will cleave. He said, they will forsake the commandments of Yahuwah, and they will cleave to Satan. What do you mean cleave to Satan? They're going to forsake the teachings of peace, because that's what commandments of Yahuwah is. The teachings of shalom. I don't know where people get this from. The commandments are the teachings of peace. Satan is the teaching of war, hatred, bitterness, lying, beating plowshares and swords and beating plowshares and pruning hooks into swords and knives. It says what? To cleave unto Baalar and Satan. That's what people done today. He said, now you don't cleave this Baalar and Satan, and leaving husbandry, because you took your plowshares and your pruning hooks and you beat them into swords and knives, and you left farming. Because you want to go fight. You want to go war. But this shalom was prepared for you, might be a war, that you may follow after your own wicked devices. That's exactly what, because you built plowshares and pruning hooks and the swords and knives. That's your own devices. You following Azazel, because he the one taught it. Oh, you mean he lamad it to you? Azazel taught you that. Amarak, Azbaal, right? And Shamy'ny Chdash, the archons. The archons want you to war because they want to stop your thought. They don't want your consciousness to be raised. So they see they don't know how much your consciousness have been raised to a higher frequency. So they try to stop your thought with all these other things they want to occupy your mind with. Right? It says, leaving husbandry and following their own wicked devices, and they shall be dispersed among the Goyim and shall serve their enemies. That's exactly what happened to you. The teachings of peace have been dispersed, but it's for a reason. But they said they're going to cleave to malice, the intention or desire to do evil. ill will. And you bleach your plowshares into pruning, your pruning hooks into swords and knives. And now you commit murder. And you killing each other. Ill will, animosity, and bitterness. Now you're going to cleave the bitterness and malice. You left the commandments because it teaches of peace for Satan. Because malice is not peace, shalom. Ill will is not shalom. Animosity is not shalom. That's a strong hostility or hatred. That's not shalom. That's war. Bitterness is war. Ill will is war. To do evil is war. You're going to be warring within yourself. Bitterness. Right? Bitterness and bitterness can be sown by other people in your life from the time you've been born until now. And then you start looking at the bitterness that comes from words. And it says anger. This is warring. This is not shalom. Disappointment. Being treated unfairly. He said, why are you going over this again? Because when you get a pruning hook and you hook it in the ground, if you ever done it, and you start pulling up, you don't get it on the first strike. What do you mean? You don't get, like, you try to pull up, you'll be sweating. You be like, man, this thing won't come up. You got a big giant rock. It ain't gonna come up on the first pull, like, and then it may be heavy. And you gotta carry it 100 yards out of your field. That's a whole nother word. Right? You got resentment. Right? These are all stones. These are all roots and plants. These are all things that were sown because you cleaved to Satan in your life at one time or another, and he sowed seeds in your life. And depending on how long you stayed in that situation, or you stayed in that frequency, he continued to sow seed inside of you. And therefore, you got a lot of work to do. You have a lot of work to do within. Right? So the word for, they're going to forsake husbandry. That means what? The scientific control and management of branch of farming, especially domestic animals. That's what he put Adam in the garden to do. So being that people have forsaken that, they've now turned their plowshares and their pruning hooks into swords and knives. And now they're warring with each other, and they're not planting seeds and getting fruits and vegetables and plants for the animals. And now the animals starting to kill each other. Because man want to fight. Man want to war. Adam and his descendants want to war. They want to fight. They want to fight not only naturally, they want to fight spiritually. They want to fight with each other with words that Yahuwah gave to give peace, to bring calamity. That's what Satan does. That's what he did in the garden with Yahushua when he was in the garden, when he tempted him. He trying to cause calamity and war and quarreling while he in there with peace. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights. He in Shalom. He comes Satan, come mess with him. And Satan trying to get him to cleave to him. He trying to get him to cleave to him while he come out of his fast. He like, man, but I can sense your energy. Let me feel it with my stuff. Come work for me. Come work for my organization. Come be a ruler over my kingdom. That's what he does. This Testament of Gad 1:18. Beware therefore, my children, of hatred. Why? Because that's Satan. For it worketh lawlessness even against the master himself. Yahuwah Elohim. For it will not hear the words of his commandments. Why? The commandments of peace. Shalom. The teachings of peace. He ain't gonna hear the teachings of peace concerning loving of one's neighbor. Man, he ain't gonna care about you. He said, man, he won't hear the words of the teachings of peace that says, love your neighbor as oneself. And it sin against Yahuwah, and he sins against Yahuwah. For if a brother stumble, it delighteth immediately to proclaim it to all men. Man, you want to proclaim that thing to all men. And it is urgent that he should be judged for it and be punished and put to death. They want you to die immediately. That's what hatred does. I hope you die. I hope your whole family die. I hope everybody you help, I hope they twist your mind. I hope you never get any repentance. I hope you never retain your sin. Like, these are the things that people say. Man, that's hatred. That's the spirit of hatred. That's the spirit of hatred. Verse 21 says, and if it be a servant, it stirs him up against his master. That's what hatred does. If you're a servant, just like servants inside the house. Like Eve say, man, my servants, everybody forsook me. Even my own children despise me. Young people despise me. Man, even my wife don't understand my brother. He's saying his servants, or he said, call your servants to stir up against his master. And with every affliction it devises against him, if possibly he can put him to death. He's trying to kill you. He said these are all the attributes of Satan. And they got to be plucked up. His seeds and his plants, they got to be yanked out. For hatred working with envy. That means you wanted something, qualities of somebody else and what they have. Also against them that prosper. So they see you prospering, hatred. So long as he hear it or see it, their success, it always languishes. This is why Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all these things that people see. Man, Satan using you as a tool. You don't even know that these people are getting envy and jealousy because they seeing you prosper, and then Satan is just cleaving to them even more. And he got them warring in their mind. And he has it set up. And it's so set up and so perfectly, it's on autopilot. And he's loving every minute of it. So what do you got to do to pluck up in your life? What do you got to take out of your life? What do you got to eliminate from your life so you don't cause other people to sin? So for as love would quicken the dead and would call back them that are commended to die, so hatred would slay the living. Man, he gonna slay the living. That's what Satan do. That's why you see all these people killing each other, slaying each other in Congo, in Rwanda, in South Africa, or in Ukraine, or in Gaza, or somebody just murdering somebody today. That's what they're doing. And those that have sinned vehemently, it will not suffer no none. How you say vehemently is something that is unintentional, something that can be, how you say, amended for. He won't even suffer you to live. Man, I'm sorry, it wasn't my intent. I want you to die. I'm sorry, I didn't give you that at that point at that time. I eventually gave it to you. I don't want you to die. Leave me alone, right? I'm sorry. Like, these are all unintentional, like things you should be able to, man, resolve. But that person within has so much hatred, whether it's toward their father, their mother, being poor, somebody leaving them, or men mistreating them, or women mistreating them. These are all parts of the people that we interacted with throughout our life, and therefore that built up because one has allowed Satan to sow his seed during your situation. And it stays with you, the residue of it. Verse 24 says, for the ruach of hatred working together with Satan through hastiness of spirits. Man, he moving. He said, hasty spirits. But you real quick to do that. In all things to men's death. People want you to die. They want you to die. But the ruach of love working together with the Turah of Elohim and long suffering unto the salvation of men, because it's the teachings of Shalom. That's what it does. It's the teachings of Shalom. Verse 25 said, hatred therefore is evil and constant made it with lying. So when somebody hates you, right, just like you see all these people with all these YouTube channels and all these places that they have all these different things, and somebody does something to them, like a woman husband cheats on her, or they call it cheating, but it's not, but it's just fornication. Or they'll be like, oh yeah, you know, he did this to me, and they start ranting and raving online, and they start talking about the situation, and everybody listening, and then they sowing the seeds of Satan inside of them, and then they got gossip in their mind, and then now they got all these slander in their mind, and then now they're lying because you don't even know if they're telling the truth, and then now you got all this, you got this smorgasbord, you got this whole outbreak of how you say slander, all because of one person. Right? Some people say, oh man, yeah, I told him this and this and this and that, and they just create a lie just so that, because it's mating with you. They both having intercourse together within yourself, within your heart and your mind and in your belly. Guess what it says? Speaking against the truth. Why? You have to speak against the truth to start lying. You have to speak against the truth to have hatred. And it making small things to be great. Turn a small little thing, a seed, and let it grow up. And just grow up all the way to the Shamy'ny. And causing the light to be darkness. Turn you from Bereshit, turn you back to darkness again. Needing light again. And causing sweet bitter. Why? Because you're now following the teachers of Penuel. When they're fallen, he taught sweet and bitter and poisons. And he calls you to write with pens and ink and take beliefs. And teaches slander. Now you slander. Because you go from lying to now you're slandering. Now you're in critical condition. right? Because once you go from hatred to lying to slander, you go from bitter in your heart. Because remember, he said you're gonna plead to Satan. He said now you're in critical condition. Now you're at a lifeline. And now guess where you at? Stirring up war. Now you won. Now you done took your plowshares, your pruning hook. Now you beat them with swords and the knives, and violence, and all covetousness. Now you all into other people's things. Now you jealousy and envy. Now it's growing even more and more and more. And it fills the heart with evils and devilish poison. That's all it does. Because you know when a snake bites you, it don't spread to the body and the rest of your body until you start moving, until the heart rate gets going. That's why war and violence and covetousness start to raise you up, and it pumps it through the rest of your body. And then it becomes a part of who you are. And you like grabbing onto it and you just, and he just won't let it go. These therefore, I say from experience, because he's experienced it before, my children, that you may drive forth hatred, which is of Satan, and cleave to the love of Yahuwah. Right? That's how you do it. He says, righteousness cast out hatred. Doing what's right. Love. Kindness for the animals and creatures. Love for farming. Love for your neighbor. That's what's going to actually cast out hatred. Humility destroys envy. That's fasting and praying. When you ever envy somebody, that's fasting and praying, or fasting from the world. It ain't just got to be food. You can just fast from just social media, fast from your life, fast from certain conversations. Just don't even speak. Right? Humility destroys envy. For if he that is just and humble is ashamed, he that is just and humble is ashamed to do what is unjust, you humble. Being reproved, not of another, but of his own heart. Why? When you get yourself in a humility state, man, it's like, man, you heard what that said, man. You ain't got to be in nobody's face like, yeah, you heard what it said, you better repent. It's like, man, you heard what he said, man, that cut my heart. But Yahuwah looketh on his inclination. Verse 29, he speaketh not against a Qahalath man, because the fear of Yahuwah overcometh hatred. For fearing lest he should offend Yahuwah, he will do no wrong to any man or woman or child, even in thought. Not even in your thought process. Not even slandering your thought. Not even lying in your thoughts. Not even having war and violence and covetousness in your thoughts. Not even stirring up slander and bitterness in your thought. Not even in your thoughts. People say, I ain't never sinned in my thought. Now you're lying to yourself. People say, no, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. You know, some people, be like, yeah, he bought this building for me. Like, he bought it for me. I'm like, nah. He's like, I told him, tell his parents to tell him that I bought the building. He'd be like, man, how you create that in your thought process? And then people saying, why is this even forming in their thoughts? Why would somebody tell a lie like that? It's because they slandering, they got sweet and bitter, they got violence, they got cover, they stirring up war, and they got hatred in their heart too much. That's the only reason they do it. Right? And you're going to see. Bereshit 3, 8 through 11. And they heard the sound of Elohim Yahuwah walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim among the trees of the garden. But Yahuwah Elohim called to the man. He called to the man. And said to him, where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. You hid yourself. He said, who told you that you were naked? Arun, have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? So you done beat your plowshares, your pruning hooks, and now you're warring within because you're like, I'm naked. You got all these other thoughts in your mind. Because you done ate from something you weren't supposed to eat from, and now you got all these warring and thoughts in your makashaba. Now your power of your thoughts has been changed. Your mind has been altered. Right? And all these things have been happening. That word for guess who's doing it? And he said, who told you? The word for who is me. Who told you that? Me. Whosoever. Who? That someone. Who is that someone? Who told you that? Who told you were naked? When I ate? Because when you ate it and you ingested it, you took the seed of Satan. Who told you that? You did. is inside of you? Me. That word for who is me. Me. And that word for told you is Nagai. Who told you that? Me. What did you tell yourself? He said, who informed you? Published. He said, well, you know the power of your thoughts. Your thoughts did it. Your thoughts told you that you were naked. Your thoughts told you to have bitterness. Your thoughts told you to have hatred. Your thoughts told you to have strife. Your thoughts told you to have that. He said, you. To tell, to make known. You made it known. You acknowledged. You informed. Confessed. Right? To announce. He said, who told you that? Who told you? Me. Apostle of Shadrach, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1. Shadrach said to him, it was by your will that it was by your will that Adam was deceived. He said, man, if you remove all malice, all hypocrisy, all envy, all jealousy, then you'll be able to discern what is Yahuwah's perfect will. He said, it's by your will that Adam was deceived, my master. You commanded the Malachim to worship Adam, but he who was first among the Malachim disobeyed your order and did not worship him. And so you banished him because he transgressed your commandment. It said, and did not come forth to worship the creation of your hands. If you loved Adam, why did you not kill Satan, the artificer of all iniquity, the most jealous and envious and hateful person in all of the how you say, from the first Shamy'n all the way to the glories of the Sheol. You dealing with a person who got so much hatred from the first entrance in the first Shamy'n all the way down to the Sheol. That's how much hatred he got. Right? He's trying to get in you. Just why did you not kill Satan, the artificer of iniquity? Who can fight against an invisible Ruach? He enters the hearts of men like a smoke and teaches them all kind of sin. Man, he said he teach them all kind of sin. He said, who can fight against an invisible spirit? Because it comes inside your thought process. Right? This is Nazarene Action of Shalakim, chapter 17, suggestion of the old serpent. Above all, therefore, you ought to understand the deception of the old serpent, and his cunning suggestions, who deceives you as it were by prudence, and as by a sort of reason creeps through the senses and deceiving you a great gain. He gained money. It's a great gain. Therefore, he enunciates in your mind opinions of Elohim, and whatsoever kinds, only that your sin may be his comfort. Because whatever you got hatred, if you got malice, if you got bitterness, if you have these things in your heart, ill will, malice, guess what he does? It's his comfort. He loves that. For his morality was condemned from the beginning to eat dust, for he caused to be again resolved into dust him who had been taken from the dust, even till the time when your beings will be restored, being brought forth through the fire, as we will instruct you more in a further time. From him therefore proceeds all error and doubts. So if you believe in your plowshares and your pruning hooks and the swords and knives, just understand. you doubted what Yahuwah said in the beginning. If you warn and fighting within yourself and with other people and everywhere, he put that in your mind, error and doubt. That's where it comes from. By which you are driven from Amunah in belief of one Elohim. Because you're only supposed to follow one commandment, and that's the teachings of peace. Shalom. But he gonna take you from that. He wants to disturb that. Right? This is Yaakov, James 4:1-4. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this that your passions are at war within you? Why? Because you forsook farming. You forsook farming. You beat your plowshares and your pruning hooks into knives and swords, and now you fighting each other and you quarreling. Hasty fights. They say real quick fights. Hastiness of spirits. Verse 2 says, you desire and do not have, so you murder. So now you warn, you killing. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. That's hasty fights. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly. To spend it on your own passions. You adulterous people. You adulterous people, because you're supposed to be the teachings of Shalom. But now you done beat your plowshares and your pruning hooks and the swords and knives, and now you've been lamaded war. So because somebody taught it to you. And that seed and that teaching is of Satan. It's of Satan. It says what? Do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with Elohim? Because you are now just like the world and everything in the world. He said, be transformed, don't conform to the patterns of the world. You see the world right now. He's saying, what are they doing? Home invasion. Women, I saw a woman killed. I saw a thing where a woman shot her 2 children in the head. War, fighting, stealing, adultery. I saw a man, it had a video, man, I blocked it, but they had a video where a man had a video in his house where a woman was sleeping with another man in his house, and she was married, and the man came and stabbed her to death with a knife. Right there on the video. They have this stuff online. He stabbed her to death about 37, 40 times, right there in the bed, and left her to dead. This is the world. And you saying, why you need to get rid of Satan out of your heart? Because he gonna turn your body. He gonna have you warring and fighting and doing all these things in your heart. Well, the last year a woman had a house in the city, and she set the whole house on fire with her children inside. Why? Because she hate her life. Because she's in poverty, she's poor, right? All these are all attributes of it. It creates fighting and wars within yourself. It opens yourself up to spiritual possession. Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of Elohim. Why? Because you're obeying spirits that Yahuwah ain't put inside of you. You are now his enemy. Why? Because you now went from the teachings of peace to quarreling and fighting and war. And now you're his enemy because that's not his teaching. Have you eaten from the tree that he told you not to eat from? Because we warriors. So he said that we at war. War with what? Military campaign to contend with carnal inclinations, right? Warfare, a soldier. So these people are warriors and soldiers for quarreling and fighting and all types of things that have nothing to do with Yahuwah. And they are enemies of Elohim Yahuwah, and they are adulterous people. Right, now saying after the Shalakim, so we must of all things hasten to the knowledge of the truth. As with a light that kindleth thereat, we may be able to dispel the darkness of errors. Because Yahuwah can proceed from Satan all error and doubt. For ignorance, as we have said, is a great evil, but because it has no substance, it is easily dispelled by those who are earnest. Right, moving through this. For ignorance is nothing else than not knowing what is good. Once know, ignorance perishes. Therefore, the knowledge of the truth has to be eagerly sought after. You got to seek after it. No one can confer it except the Nabi Aman. For this is the gate of life, to those who enter in the road of good works unto the city of salvation. Right, because the error, darkness of error. Aleph Ukanan, John 1 and 5. This is the message that we have heard from him, that we proclaim to you. We scatter these seeds among you, that Yahuwah is light, and in him is no darkness at all. There is no darkness of errors within his teachings of the commandments of peace. There is no darkness at all. You know who gets all darkness? Right? Proverbs 3, 1 through 8. My son and daughter, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments, my teachings of peace. For length of days and years and peace will be added to you. You want it? Let not steadfast love faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck and write them on the tablets of your mind. For you will find good success in the sight of Yahuwah and man. Why do you think Yahushua, when he went to the temple and he was asking, he said he grew in stature inside of Elohim and man. In Luke chapter 2. He said, trust in Yahuwah with all your heart, because you'll be like Mount Sion. You'll be confident and secure. And do not lean to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your path. He gonna do it. When you sit in the house, walk by the way, when you lie down, you rise up. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahuwah and turn away from Ra. It'll be healing, rafuf, to your shore, and refreshment to your bones, your connection. Because we know that word for shore is umbilical cord, your navel string. Because if you got hatred, malice, and hypocrisy, you're not a newborn infant. You don't have a navel string. You are a grown adult who think they know everything. That's just really that simple. And you don't have it, you're not desiring the sincere milk of the word because you're a grown person and you ain't got no navel string. So this is Psalms 34, 11 through 14. Oh, children, come listen to me, and I will teach you about the fear of Yahuwah. What man is there who desires long life, desires life and love many days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil, and your lips from speaking deceit, because it comes from your mouth. For out of him proceeds all error and doubt. That's what's going to come from your mouth. Turn away from evil, and do good, and seek peace, shalom, and pursue it. Turn away from and do good. Right? So, word for shalom, word for peace is shalom. He said, pursue completeness. Remember what he did in the garden with Adam? Quiet. He put him in a peaceful, quiet place. Tranquility, contentment, completeness, friendship, peace. Yahushua said, "You are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you." He said, "You want a friendship that nobody can take away. Seek peace and quiet and tranquility and contentment and relationship." Right? He said, happy, friendly, welfare, safe. He said, man, seek the peace, the shalom. Right? So you look at shalom, because we know shalom, equals the 7, 376 equals the 16. But we know it is the what? Destroy the direction and teaching attached to chaos. Hatred, malice, ill will, resentment, bitterness, jealousy, envy. These are all directions and teachings attached to chaos. You won't have no shalom. Right? How you say it? Languishing. Right? Insatiableness. All these, ill will, evil. Right? All these are all teachings and directions of chaos. And Satan teaches it. Beating your plowshares and your pruning hooks into swords and knives and fighting and warring and quarreling. That's all teachings of chaos. I say you will lamad it. Somebody taught it to you. Makashah, right? They taught you your war. They put it inside of you. He put it inside of your consciousness. It was taught to you, either from any time in your life, because Satan enters into people and teaches you this. From the time you've been born until now, he taught you certain things in certain directions that were teachings of chaos, and it created chaos in your life. So now is the time to pluck up what is planted. Why? Because when you look at quantum entanglement, right? So we get a quantum field, a quantum reality, protons, electrons, neurons, quarks, molecules, photons, neurons, unseen forces that you can't see, right? When they look at the word quantum entanglement, is counterintuitive phenomenon that explains how two subatomic particles, right? When you're talking to somebody intimately, two people, you're exchanging energy and information through those particles and vibrations and those invisible strings that connect you to. Whether it's male, female, whether it's man or woman, mother, father, sister, brother, brother, man, woman, child, all these are all attached through subatomic particles, just like the light rays of a sun attached to your face when you look at it in the sky. And two subatomic particles can be intimately linked to each other, even if separated by billions of light years of space. So just like how far you are from here, Yahushua sits in the highest Shamy'n on the right hand of Yahuwah Elohim, and then therefore you all the way here on earth. And if you're attached to him, then you're entangled, you're quantumly entangled with this person. But you see now Satan, what is Satan trying to do? He's trying to get in your consciousness, your thoughts, so you can now fight with him all the way in the billions and light years away from you. And then that's the same thing that happens to you on earth with human beings and relationships, and relationship with your mother and father, relationship with your husband and wife, relationship with your friend, the elder, or a person down the street, a community, or a person that you interacted with. These are entanglement. And if it's a negative interaction, you're still entangled with that subatomic particle if you don't cut it. What do you mean you don't pluck up the plant that they planted, the seed they planted? Because they'll weave their way into that plant, and that plant is inside of you, and all they gotta do is water it a little bit, and it'll still be there, and they have control over your mind. Guess what it says? Despite their vast separation, even if you separated from these people. So they can be in another city or another country, and you say something, and that seed goes in their mind, and it keeps growing. They now have a quantum entanglement with you, and if it's of Satan, then you now creating war throughout your whole life in their life in another place. That's the same thing that happens on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere. Despite their very separation, a change induced in one affects the other. So if you make a change within yourself, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna follow love, compassion, humility, meekness, I forgive you, I love you, I hope, all these are all attributes, right? You start making a change within yourself, and guess what? It's gonna affect the other people. I'm not following hatred, jealousy, envy, malice, bitterness, ill will. I'm not gonna follow slander and gossip. I'm not gonna follow these things. So therefore now it's gonna make an effect on somebody else, and that quantum entanglement that you've already have, and there's nothing you can do about it, it now changes in the other person. Because we're all attached to certain people, and by being attached to certain people, if you change, then it does affect other people. It affects other people. I'm not following that. I'm not following bitterness and strife. I'm not following you. Right? Same thing, right? So quantum entanglement is a phenomenon that occurs when a group of particles, so it can be a group of people, a place, a building, a meeting place, a place where people go. A group of particles is generated, it says particles are generated and interact or share spatial proximity in such a way that the quantum state of each particle of group cannot be described independently of the state of others, including when particles are separated from very large distances. In quantum entanglement, right? So it says in relationships, quantum entanglement is inescapable. People get entangled physically. That's in your body. People saying why? Because if that other person's affecting you, it's going to change you physically. That's in every single aspect of your life, going through your whole life until this point. Psychologically, financially, it'll even affect your finances. It says emotionally, when they spend a lot of time with each other. So all these are all a part of that connection. And that quantum entanglement can directly affect every single thing. Right? So this is Psalms 15, 1 through 5. Yahuwah, who shall join in your tent? And who shall dwell in your Qahalath? He who walks blamelessly and does what is right, and speaks the truth in his heart. Speak these words when you sit in the house, walk by the way, and lie down and rise up. Who does not slander with his tongue. Because that's Satan, he teaches slander. And does no evil to his neighbor. You ain't gonna do no wrong. Nor takes up a reproach against his friend. Against his friend. These are all the teachings of peace. No slander, no evil to your neighbor, no reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised. You despise and rejected by men. But who honors those who fear Yahuwah, who swears to his own hurt and does not change, who does not put out his money at interest. Man, you ain't putting out your money at interest, and does not take a bribe against the innocent. Who does not defraud, who does not do extortion, who does not swear to his own hurt. I make a vow and then I say I'm not going to do it. I'm gonna break my covenant that I made with my marriage vow. He said, you can't dwell in Zion, you can't dwell in Jerusalem, the teachings of peace, because you breaking covenants. You can't be there. Yahuwah doesn't want nobody there who breaks covenant and vows. You swearing and it doesn't, and you don't change it, and does not take a bribe against the innocent, and who does not change. Does these things shall never be moved. You ain't never gonna be moved from something. Even a parched place that desires water, and it's surrounded by mountains. Right. So the word for his neighbor is Rhea. Who does no evil to his neighbor is Rhea, his friend. He said, those who don't do evil to friends, companions, another person, a friend, an intimate fellow citizen, a brother, companion, a friend, a husband, a lover, a neighbor. He said, those who don't do this, Don't take up, how you say, does evil or reproach against these people, these type of individuals. These are the teachers of peace. He said, I'll let you be in my Qahalath. I'll let you dwell in Solomon. I'll let you dwell in Jerusalem. I'll let you be in the kingdom, the Malkuth, that's coming from, as a bride adorned from her husband. I'll let you be there. And also, the word for friend is Qurah. He said, don't take a reproach against his neighbor and his friend. The word for after neighbor is Reah, and then the friend is what? Near, place and time. Any kinfolk. Anybody, right? Near place. Your neighbor and your friends. So he's saying, all the people who don't take a reproach and do evil, don't do evil to these people, to your friends and your neighbor, your Reah, your companion, your relationship, anything. He said, I'll let you dwell in my Qahalath. I'll let you dwell in the mountain. I'll let you be there. So what does he says who does not slander with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor. That word for slander is regal. He said, he who does not go on foot or spout a talebearer or a slander. He mean to walk along, because we supposed to speak the teachings of peace when we walk along the way we allow them to rise up. Who teaches slander? Satan does. It made up of hatred. He said, you can't be there, but those who don't do it, he said, you can be there. He said, spot. And then the people that sow that, so what you gotta be careful of, people that sow slander, rather, whether it's anywhere, right? He say backbite. They sowing the seed in your mind about that individual or person, and by doing that, by sowing that seed in your mind, what does it create? It creates, it makes you do the very same thing they do. Because they got hatred towards that individual. So they sow the seed in you, so you can have the same hatred that they have toward an individual. You can have the same hatred that he has for that individual. And that's what people do. But it's on, and you see this everywhere. You see this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You see this in congregations, pastors, teachers, evangelists, prophets, Nabi'im, apostles, mother, father, sister, brother, uncle. You see it with sister, brother. You see it with man, woman, child. You see it in households. Right? All these are all a part of hatred. And you get the seed sown in you. So say a teacher or a person who hates an individual because he can speak better than him, he can talk better than him, he can sing better than him. He sows a seed of hatred in you to hate him because he hates him, and he's jealous and envy because he got hatred inside of him because he hates that individual. And then guess what happens? Now you got the same seed of Satan inside of you, and now you become a seed. You know how who'd you say? You cross sea and land to make one proselyte, and you make them twofold, a child of hell in yourself. And people are like, what do you mean by that? Because you got slender and all these things in your heart, and you go and slow sow things that people always cross. You go to Africa. I don't care if you go to Africa or you go to another country, or Akusan or South America. You sow things that guess what? Now you've created another child of Satan. Because of the seed that you have inside of you, that you never plucked up what was planted, and now you have it, and now you got it in somebody else. That's why women or people who leave places or like buildings or they even mistreated a congregation or a place, they got the seed of that individual that sowed it in their mind, still in their heart. So then now they warn within themselves and try to fight off that seed that was sown of slander, tale-bearing, and all that about not only them but other people. And that's the whole thing, right? So you look at it, because that word regal has a lot of different meanings, but we're going to go over backbite. That means to talk maliciously about someone who is not present. When he said maliciously means what? To do somebody, how you say a gossiper, a slander. The maliciously is to ruin a person without them present. It's like, okay, say it to my face. Right? You know how they say? Say it to my face then. Right? Just like in the book of Qahalath, it tells you what? He said, not even in your house curse the king, nor the rich, unless that winged creature come and tell them about the matter. He said, say it to my face. Slander is what? The action or crime of making a false spoken statement damaging a person's reputation. That's what Satan do. So you think about people's reputation and people like, man, why you put that out? Why you said that about that person? We don't even, man, you know what that's gonna do to that person? You know how many people look at this person as a good person? He said, as a good man, and get what happens? Or a good woman, or a good child, right? It said, talebearer. It said, a person who maliciously gossips or reveals secrets. What do you mean, reveal secrets? That means, man, I told you a secret. Man, I did this thing back when I was young. And they take that. I remember they had this place, remember, they signed a confidentiality agreement. They told you to confess all your sins, right? And then they go blabber it out to the whole world to hear. And then you be like, man, what? I mean, movies got more ethical values than you. Because movies sign, when they say movies, they sign confidentiality agreements, and they don't even break that. But people that say believe in Yahuwah, they break it. How is that even possible? A person who maliciously gossips or reveals secrets. That's a talebearer. The word maliciously means to have, is a malicious conversation, right? Maliciously means having or showing a desire to cause harm to someone. That's what it is, a malicious conversation. Giving to or marked by or rising from malice or malicious gossip. This is what people do. This is gossip, a casual or unstrained conversation or report of other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true. How many things have you heard and you people be saying things about things or people? Or mother, father, sister, brother, or sister, brother, brother, a place, a person. Now you see it on the internet everywhere you go. They be saying things about people and it's not even confirming it to be true. And now, guess what you've now done? You've now sowed the seeds of Satan. You are now his employee. You now work with this man. You be like, man, Yahuwah's my head, my boss. You're like, nah. Satan works for Yahuwah. You just under Satan now. And Satan's over the seas. You work for Satan. But Satan, you still ruled by Yahuwah, but you just work for another being. You're just not working for Yahuwah. But you still under Yahuwah's umbrella. Like, hey, you still under my control. He's like, man, Yahuwah my boss. Yeah, he is the head boss. But then you got another leader that's directing you. They say not even confirmed to be true. This is Leviticus 19, 16 through 17. You shall not go around as a slander among your people. Right? That's anywhere. It ain't just among people in general. That's anywhere. That's anywhere. You do that out in the world, you don't know what may happen. Like people have a whole different agenda. Everybody not thinking the same. You say anything about somebody, I mean, you just look at a person wrong. It's on and popping. Right? Like popcorn. All you gotta just turn the heat up a little bit. It says among your people, you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am Yahuwah. Because that's what you're doing. When you're slandering, you're revealing things, and you're trying to do harm to your neighbor, to the person, your reah, your friend, your companion, the person that's close to you, your kinship, your relationships. It says you shall not hate or saneh your brother in your heart, or sister, or child, or mother, or father. Right? They just have like brother, but you shouldn't hate nobody in your heart. For you shall reason frankly with your neighbor, your reah, lest you incur sin because of him, huh? You're gonna incur sin. You're gonna incur sin because of him. Now you're in trouble. Right? The word for slander is rakil. It means slander, a talebearer. We just went over talebearer. Right? Gossiping. Things that are not, how you say, confirmed to be true. All these are all a part of the same umbrella of slander. So you see all these different spirits and all the different attributes of it, and you're entangled in all of that. Quantum entanglement. So now you have to change your ways in order for the other person to change their view of you. Because you've spread the slander, so now you gotta fix your slander. Proverbs 10:18. The one who conceals hatred or sinah, like they call you a sinner today. You're a sinner. No, you just hatred. Sinner has lying lips. And whoever utters slander is a fool. What do you mean a fool? So that word for slander is debat. It means you're a whisperer, like Satan in the garden. It means you utter slander, you give an evil report. Gossip, slander, talebearer, malicious conversation to do harm to somebody, evil report, to ruin somebody's reputation. A word, you're trying to ruin somebody's reputation, and Yahuwah says that you are a fool. Meaning, what's a fool? A fool is a ketzir. You mean you stupid. He said you are a stupid man, woman, child, mother, father, sister, brother, uncle, teacher, pastor, shepherd, raha, companion, concubine, wife, husband. He said, man, you are a stupid fool. You stupid. You a fellow. You a stupid, silly fool. Oh yeah. And arrogant. Right? That's arrogance is what? Accomplishments of your own self. Right? You are a stupid, arrogant, stupid fool. Right? These are the definitions. You're a stupid, arrogant, silly, stupid fool. Why? Because you're not going. He said you're not going to be in my malkut. Right? Sirach 28:10 through 13. As the matters of the fire is, so it burneth, and as a man's strength is, so is his wrath. And according to his riches, his anger riseth, and the stronger they are, which contend, the more they will be inflamed. So the more fire you got on the inside, the more it's burning. That's your strength. And guess what? And your wrath will increase. And that's your riches within. So he was saying, what do you mean? So you got all that anger and wrath within? He said, man, all somebody got to do is strike you wrong. Remember that? I think it was somebody was walking down the street with his wife. It was like, what, 12 in the morning, sitting on a bench waiting for a ride. And the man just walking by, he was kicking everything, kicking the trash can. Then he walks by, he starts walking with her to go to his ride. He's like, he just turns around. What you looking at? Because he had so much wrath. He was rich in that stuff. He was rich in anger. Man, he said, what you looking at? He just came at him and started swinging a knife and killed the man. He said, and the stronger they are will contend. He said, they are which contend, and the more will it be inflamed. Man, he was so inflamed. Right? Verse 11 says, and hasty contention killeth a fire. It kindleth a fire. So you got hasty spirits, like we talked about hasty spirits. A person that sinned vehemently, the spirit of hatred. It's a hastiness of spirits. You hasty contention, you kindle the fire. You mean you kindling the fire. And hasty fighting sheddeth blood. Now he said, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, right? That's what we're supposed to be, right? But if you hasty in it, you kindle the fire. You get ready to shed some blood. Because you may be operating off gossip or slander that it may not even be confirmed to be true. And then now, you've now done things, man, this person did this person did that. Or my child did this, or my husband did that, or this person said this about me, or my mother did this, or this person did that, or this person did. Now you're reacting off of things you ain't even confirmed to be true. And now you're fighting and shedding blood. You can in contention. Verse 12 says, if thou blow the spark, it shall burn. But if you lit a fire, what do? You light it and you blow the wood. It says, if thou spit upon it, it shall be quenched. And both these come out of your mouth. So your spark, your blow, your breath, words you say, and your spit that when you speak, all come out of your same mouth. And all these things create sparks and fights and fires, and they create anger. Verse 13 says, curse the whisper and the double tongue. Why? Because these are supposed to be the teachings of peace. For such have destroyed many that were at peace. He said they destroyed them. From their mouth. Right? And that's through many attributes. Slander, hatred, many things, right? So this is, verse 28 says, a backbiting tongue have disquieted many. So that's a backbiter. Somebody talk behind your back, slander, gossip. Have disquieted many. Right? What do you mean disquieted many? And have driven them from nation to nation. And strong cities have pulled it down and overthrown the houses of great men. Right? So that word disquieted means a feeling of anxiety or worry, or to make somebody worried or uneasy. So you think about that. How many times in your life have you been disquieted from a backbiting tongue that made you want to leave a place? That made you want to leave a city? but that made you want to leave in general. Think about that. It says what? He said you got to pluck this stuff up. All the backbiting tongues, all the slander, all the hatred, all that is in your consciousness. You got to take it out. You got to pull the plants out. You got to pull the stones out. Because it's a time to pluck up what is planted. Right? And it also, it says, verse 15 says, a backbiting tongue cast out virtuous women. That's what a backbiting tongue does. It's a backstabbing, slanderous, ill-will tongue, because it all comes from your mouth, the spit and the fire. And it just quiet a minute. It makes people anxiety. You ever seen people with anxiety? They call it anxiety. These are all people who encountered Satan inside of people and deprive them of their labors. Verse 16 said, whoso hearkeneth unto it shall never find rest. That's what he said. He put him in the garden to do what? He rested him in the garden. That's what he did with Adam, right? He made him quiet and never dwell quietly. He said, you ain't never going to be in the garden quiet. He said, you ain't never going to find any rest. With a backbiting tongue, a slanderer, a gossip, a person who has these attributes, who got hatred, malice, and envy. He said, man, you'll never find rest and never dwell quietly. Because you know that word backbite talking maliciously about someone who is not present. He said, man, you'll never find rest or dwell quietly. He said, you'll never find rest or dwell quietly. And that's what he built Adam in the garden to do. He said he put him in the garden to do that. To be at rest. Because this is a day of rest. Right? He's saying you won't have it. It's Jeremiah 32 and 23 and 2. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah Elohim concerning the shepherds who care for my people. You have scattered my flock. How are you going to drive them away? By a backbiting tongue. You have driven them away by a backbiting tongue, by a slanderous tongue, by slander, by gossip, by hatred, by envy, by jealousy, by strife, by lying, by mating with Satan, through hatred and hastiness to fights. He said, you scattered my heart and driven away, and you have not attended to them. They gone. Behold, I will attend to your evil deeds, declares Yahuwah. Then I will gather the remnant of my flock out of all the countries where I have driven them. Then he said, backbiting tongue make you go all throughout all the world. And the country said, man, why do you think he cast them out of Jerusalem? Because they were farming and took their pruning hooks and the sword. They turned their pruning hooks and their plowshares and the swords and knives. They started fighting. So therefore, he drove them all away. And I will bring them back to their fold, and they shall be a fruitful and multiply. How are you going to be fruitful and multiply? Rabar Malay. You know what he told Adam? He said they're going to be quiet in that rest. They're going to have to teach us a peace again. Now that you're gone. Now that the evil deeds that you've done have been plucked up within their consciousness. So now he's saying now they're going to be fruitful and multiply. Because you only can do fruitful and multiply. You can't have no children or no fruitful garden or anything, or a type of increase or animals or a farm while you people busy fighting all the time. He said all those animals gonna get neglected, your house gonna get neglected, the children gonna get neglected, you gonna get neglected, everything gonna be neglected. He said, what good is that? Just get out. He said everybody just go where they're supposed to go. You can't be fruitful and multiply like that. Shalom built a house for Yahuwah in the time of peace. Because Daud was a man of war. Right? Look at that. The teachings of Shalom. Yakaziel, Ezekiel 22:6-8. Behold, the prince of Yashral in you, every one according to his power, have been bent on shedding blood. He talking about the princes, the rulers. How you say? Father and mother are treated with contempt in you. The sojourner suffers extortion. They get defrauded in your midst. The fatherless and the widows are wronged in you. You have despised my Kudash things and profaned my Shabbats. Why? Because you ain't got no teachers of peace. Because you're supposed to be at rest in the garden, like Adam. When he played on that, he put him there. And then what happens? Now you ain't got no peace. You profane my Shabbat. Well, you're supposed to cease from all your work, right? That's what Yahuwah did in the beginning. And he finished the work. And he was at peace. Verse 9 says, there are men in you who slander or recall to shed blood. They slandering. They slandering and saying things to do what? To ruin a person's reputation, to kill them. And people in you eat on mountains. They sacrifice to other gods and demons on mountains. They commit lewdness in your midst, which means they're doing intercourse. They're doing all types of things on the mountains. It says, in you men uncover their father's nakedness. That means they sleep with other men's wives. In you they violate women who are unclean in the menstrual. They sleep with women in the menstrual. One commits when the moon is at a certain period in the Shamy'n. That's when women go on menstrual cycles. One commits abominations with his neighbor's wife. Adultery. Another lewdly defiles his daughter-in-law, sleeps with your son's wife. Another in you violates his sister, sleeps with his own sister. His father's daughter. In you they take bribes and shed blood. You take interest and profit and make gain of your neighbors by extortion. But me you have forgotten, declares Yahuwah. You exchanged my teachings of peace and you cleave to malice and slander and gossip and lying and fornication. You cleave to the teachings of Satan because he lamad you. He taught it to you. He taught it to you. He taught it to you. Right? And he make you war within. And that's why Psalms 50, 16 through 23. But to the wicked, Yahuwah says, what have you to recite my statutes and take up my covenants in your lips? That's what people do. Like, yeah, they go through all of it and they read it all. And they show it all. Because what it says, for you hate discipline and cast my words behind you. So even though one recited out of their mouth, and they can do all these things and have all this knowledge, he said, but you cast the words behind your back, behind you. If you see a thief, you are pleased with him. He said, man, you pleased with a thief. And you keep company with adulterers. You keep that quantum entanglement. He's saying, why? Because when you're in those presence, you're quantumly entangling with these people. And then what happens? You take on the same behaviors as them. What do you think a thief going to talk about with you? What do you think an adulterer going to talk about with you? You're going to be talking about things that you have no business taking in your thought process and your consciousness. Verse 19, you give your mouth free rein for evil. You're saying all types of things out of your tongue. Because spit and fire come out of your, he said, come out of your mouth. One kindleth the fire and one puts it out. And guess what? He said, you give your tongue to frame deceit, and you sit. He said, you sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son. If you backbite, if you gossip, if you slander, if you trying to ruin somebody's reputation, if you got hatred, he's saying you slander your own mother's son. And you got to pluck up what is planted in your thought process, in your consciousness. That's been sown in your mind from your time you've been born until now. You got to get in a deep meditative state. You got to get in the seek Yahuwah, Darash, greater verse of Yahuwah, study, or Darash. You got to get in a prayer, meditative state. And you got to find, if he said any man going to find his demon, you got to go within. You got to go in and you got to find that spirit, that seed, that Satan that he's sown. And you got to pull it out. Verse 21 says, these things you have done, and I have been silent. Like, man, I've been quiet. I've been really, really silent. You thought I was one like yourself. That's what Yahuwah is saying. But now I rebuke you, and I lay charge before you. Mark this, then, you who forget Yahuwah Elohim. You know what they did we just read? In the book of Ezekiel. He said, man, you have cast me away and you forgot me. And you see all the stuff they did when they forgot. They forsook the teachings of peace, and man, and they did all of that. And that's what people do today. So are you constantly entangled with people who do that? And if you are, you need to pluck up what is planted. You need to remove these things from your consciousness and your thoughts. And you need to sever this entanglement. You have to cut it. And you can't do it with your own will. You got to do it by the sword of the Ruach. You can cut that entanglement. Unless I tear you apart, and there be none to deliver. And he said, you forget your Halaim, as I tear you apart, you be none to deliver. Isn't that why he scattered them apart? Hey man, you're going to serve your enemies. Get out. Verse 23, the one who offers praise to Dah, their word for praise is to Dah, as his sacrifice, he kabodes me or glorifies me. To the one who orders his way rightly, I will show him the salvation of Yahuwah. He said, you who sit and speak as your brother, you slander your own mother's son. He said, you see a thief, you please with him. you keep company with adulterers, right? You keep company with adulterers. He says, Jeremiah 3:6-14, Yahuwah said, in the days of Josiah, have you seen what she did? That faithless one, Yasharal? Hey man, you keep company with adulterers. How she went up on every high hill and under every green tree and played the whore. And I thought, after she had done all this, she would return to me, because they forgot about her. They forgot about teachers of peace. But she did not return. And her treacherous sister Yehuda, she saw it. And she saw that for all the adulteries of that faithless one, Yasharal, I sent her away with a decree of divorce. Man, he said, man, I cast you out. He's going to serve your enemies. Yet her treacherous sister Yehuda did not fear. But she too went and played the whore, because she took her whoredom lightly. She polluted the land, committed adultery with stone and tree. Yet for all this, her treacherous sister Yehuda did not return to me with her whole heart, but in pretense declares Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said, faithless Yasharal, I have shown herself more righteous than Yehuda. Go and proclaim these words toward the north, and say, return, O faithless Yasharal, declares Yahuwah, and I will not look at you in anger, for I am merciful, declares Yahuwah, and I will not be angry forever, only acknowledge your guilt. That's anyone, whether man, woman, or child, no matter what color skin you are. Only acknowledge your guilt, that you have rebelled against Yahuwah, your Elohim, and scattered your favors among foreigners under every green tree, that you have not obeyed the voice of Yahuwah, declares Yahuwah Elohim. Return, O faithless children, declares Yahuwah, for I am your Baal. I am your ruler. I am the God that you serve. I want to be that person over you. He said, but you adulterous people. He said, what causes quarrels and fights among you? Is it not that which warn your members? You adulterous people. You exchange your plowshares and your pruning hooks for war and fighting. Yukonah 12:27-36. Now is my soul troubled. What shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I have come into this hour, because there's a time for everything, every seed, everything under the sun. Father, kabod your name. He said those who offer praise to me, they kabod me. What do you think he's doing right now? He's saying a prayer, a tudah, a thank you. Then a voice came from Shamy'n, I have kaboded and kaboded again. Amazingly, Yahuwah was speaking with him. When the Mashah and them were on the mountain and Yahuwah spoke to them, he said, Yahuwah, don't speak with us. Let you speak with us, lest we die. Not Yahusha. Yahusha lied. That's my Father's voice. So are you really his child? He said, that's my Father's voice. The crowd that stood there and heard it said that it had thunder. He lied. Others said a malach had spoken to him. Yahusha answered, this voice has come for your own sake, not mine. Now is the judgment of this world. Now will the ruler of this world be cast out. And when I am lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people to myself. And it will come to pass in the last days, the mountain of Yahuwah should be toppled, exalted above all hills and the highest mountains. And all the people shall flow into it. Why? Because the teaching of peace, everybody at war and fighting. They beat their plowshares and their pruning hooks and their swords and knives. Matthew 12:11-27-30. All these things I have handed down from me and my Father. And no one knows the Son except the Father. And no one knows the Father except the Son. And anyone whom the Son chooses reveal him. Come to me, all who labor, that's doing hard work and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. You know what he put Adam in the garden to do? He put Adam in the garden, he said, wet rest and be quiet. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Amazingly, when Adam, he said, who told you that word for who was me? He said, what? Who told you that? Yahuwah like, no, learn from me, not from them, from him. Take your swords and take your swords and take your knives and beat them in plowshares and pruning hooks. Why? For I am gentle and lowly in heart. Why? Because now you become a farmer again. Because you're laboring and heavy laden with all the other stuff you were doing. Hatred, jealousy, envy, lying, malice, right? Ill will, bitterness, resentment. These are all heavy laden. You're really heavy. You are in labor. He said, lowly heart, and you will find rest for your soul. You're going to be at peace. you're going to be at peace. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He light. Look at here. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. When Satan teach you, he said, learn from me. When you allow Satan to lamar you in war, he like, man, you're going to be heavy laden and burdened. But you let me teach you, they're going to be real light and easy. He said, it's really light. He said, all you got to do is learn from me. He said, man, you ain't got to do all that. He's like, Satan, he wants you to do all that. He's like, man, that's heavy. Laden, you'll be worn all the rest of your life. He said, you ain't going to have no rest. You ain't going to have no peace. You ain't going to have no shalom. He said, just learn from me. Right? This is Yochanan 10, 11 through 8. So Yahushua again said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers. What do you think all them people came? They're like thieves and robbers. He said, man, you see a thief and you pleased with him. You keep company with adulterers. He's like, they all thieves and robbers. But the sheep did not listen to them. Why do you think he ain't listen to them? He's like, don't listen to them people. What y'all listening to these people for? Why are you letting these people lamar you and teach you? He's like, man, they not going to listen to these people. Why do you think he said the sheep? He said, you scattered all the sheep, you scattered out. He said, I'm going to bring them back. They're going to be fruitful and multiply. Man, they're not going to listen to you. He said, why would I listen to you? He said, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go out in and out and find pasture. He's like, man, what? I'm not listening to you. The thief comes, what he coming to do? Kill, steal, and destroy. Wow. That's what Satan coming to do. He was just like, man, learn from me. Take those swords and knives, beat them to plowshares and pruning hooks. Become a farmer like Adam and Garden, you'll find rest for your soul. But if you listen to Satan, you're going to be just like him, a thief, steal, kill, and destroy. And you're going to be doing that through slander, gossip, lying, hatred, malice, murder, killing, adultery, not being good to your neighbor, because he don't listen to love your neighbor, you love yourself. Because if you love your neighbor, you love yourself, you definitely won't be laying with nobody's wife or destroying their household or doing the things you're doing. He said, I came that they might have life and have it more abundantly, be fruitful and multiply. I am the good shepherd. That's who he is. The good shepherd laid down his life for the sheep. That's what he did. He who is a hired hand is not a shepherd. He just hired. He said, man, I'm hired. I do this for a living. You just a hired hand. You ain't the shepherd. They be like, I'm the shepherd. No, you just a hired shepherd. He says, who does not own the sheep? He don't even own them. Seeing the wolf comes, he leaves the sheep and flees, right? And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. That's what happens. Satan come, what he do? He teach. He scatters everybody. And he said he flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. You scatter them all out. You be like, look at that. The sheep been scattered. All of the animals, because you ever did farming and cultivation, if you ain't you forsook farming and the cultivation of animals, you know that's wealth. When a sheep leaves and it's taken away, that is wealth. Because when Ehud got his money back, how much was it? 3,000 sheep, 4,000 camels, about a total in this current value, $125 million. So when he lost a sheep or something, that's money. Satan come to steal, kill, and destroy. That was wealth back in the day. So that's a lot of money. He said, I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just like you give an animal a name. Whatsoever Adam called the animal, that's what his name was. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. That's why David killed a lion and a bear, to get him back. And I have other sheep that I have not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. He's like, I ain't listen to you. You teaching war and slander and hatred and envy and strife and dissension and rivalries. You teaching lying. You ain't teaching no love and compassion. Man, I'm not listening to you. He's like, man, you mocking. It says, so there will be one flock and one shepherd, because you don't own it. There's only one who owns it. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life, and I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down. I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. It's Mark 14:10. Then Judas Iscariot, who was one of the 12, went to the chief priests in order to betray him to them. And when they had heard it, they were glad and promised to give money. Why? He said the chiefs of Yasharal, what do? They slander the shed blood. That's what they're doing right here. What are they doing? They gossiping about things and slandering to shed blood. Trying to ruin a person's reputation to shed blood. What do you think they get ready to do, Yahushua? And he sought an opportunity to betray him. To do what? To create an event that may be something to his death, to his downfall. That all is the teaching of Satan. And where did it come from? Just like we talk about a hasty fight and hastiness of words. And what happens? He said they mate together. And what happens with that? You have what? Wars and fights. And a spark and a fire that's put out comes from your mouth. So they're talking amongst each other and they're creating the very act before it happens. Because it's the power of their thoughts. And Satan's seed is inside of them. Matthew 15:18. But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. What do you think they're talking about? To betray. That's deceit, slander, gossip. That's malicious words. To do harm to somebody. That's what they're talking about with Judas and the chief priests. And all those at Yasharal. They slander the shed blood. He said, but what comes out of the mouth proceeds in the heart, and this defiles the person, for out of it comes evil thoughts, all from Satan. Murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, and slander. These are all a part of backbiting, slander. These are all part of Satan, because he teaches hatred, spirit of hatred working to Satan, and it teaches these things. These are what defile a person, but to eat with unwashed hands does not defile anyone. If I give a homeless person something to eat, and they eat it, or a person who don't have any food and ain't got no water to wash their hand, they gonna eat it. So what do you think? And they be like, and they give you, say, man, Barak be you, and all these things, right? And then you give it to them, and they got unwashed hands, it ain't defiling them. Because what coming out of their mouth is what's actually showing you who they are. Now when I give somebody, I don't want Jay, get out of my face. That's a person who hasn't dealt with the malice and hatred in their heart. Because they can't accept that. So that person is still dealing with the teachings of Satan that's been sown in their mind. And the quantum entanglement that happened that got them to that situation. And then you give them that and they don't want it. But then the person in gratitude, they dealt with their situation, they dealt with who they are, and they just like, I'm only here because of this happened, and I ain't scared to admit it. And they'll receive what you got. But those who haven't dealt with it, they will never receive it. He said, man, that's exactly what this happens with people it comes out of their mouth. Evil thoughts, slander, false witness, theft, immorality, sexual immorality, right? All this, all a part of it. So this is the Syriac New Testament, Yahushua chapter 13, John 13, 26 to 35. This is the Syriac New Testament. Yahushua answered and said he it is, to whom I give the bread when I have dipped it. And Yehuda dipped the bread and gave it, and Yahushua, dipped the bread. Yahushua dipped the bread and gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the bread, then Satan entered into him, which means now he entered in his mind like a smoke. And Yahushua said to him, what thou doest, do it quickly, because Yahushua already knew Satan was inside him. Yahushua already knew Satan was inside him. As soon as it came inside him, he said, what you do it quickly. And no one of those reclining at the table knew. Wherefore he said Wherefore he said this to him. For some of them supposed, because the purse was in the hands of Judas, that Yahushua expressly charged him to buy something needful for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. Because that's what you're supposed to do. And Yehuda took the bread, and Judas took the bread at once and went out of the house, because Satan already in him. He teaches you hatred, envy, jealousy, malicious words to shed blood. And amazingly, what did he say? He said, do it quickly. What is it? He said, a hasty fight. He said, a hastiness of spirits. He said, hastiness to fighting. He said, that's what a person who kindled a strife in the book of Sirach. He said it's like a fire, and they both come out of their mouth. Hastiness to fighting. And he said, guess what hastiness to fighting does in the book of Sirach, 28. He said it leads to bloodshed. Why do you think he told him to do it quickly? He told him to hurry up and do it. Because he needed to lead to bloodshed. I need my blood to be shed. So therefore, you need to hurry up and go do what you're getting ready to do. For some of them, suppose that he would bring a purse in the hands of Judas, and Yahusha expressly charged him to buy something needful for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. And Judas took the bread at once, and he went out of the house, and it was night, and he went out. He said, now is the Son of Man kabod in him. And if Elohim Yahuwah is glorified in him, Yahuwah Elohim is kabod in himself, and will kabod him speedily. Why? Because I'm getting ready to be glorified. I'm getting ready to be shed. My blood getting ready to be shed quickly. And I told him to go do it quickly and do it speedily, because he got the hastiness of spirits and the spirit of hatred on the inside, the spirit of Satan. And he got greed on the inside. And he slandered and shed blood. He got malicious words. And he hastened to fighting. And I need him to shed blood. I need him to do it quick. So I give him a commandment to do it quick. Matthew 26:52-56. Then Yahusha said to him, put your sword back in your place. For all who take the sword will perish with the sword. Do you not think I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 2 legions of Malachite? But how then should the scripture be fulfilled, that it must be so? And at that hour Yahusha said to the crowds, have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to capture me? He said, man, you see a thief and you pleased with him. Amazingly, Yahusha wasn't pleased with him when he came, but at the same time, when they came for him as a thief, and they looked at him as a thief, he said, man, you coming at me with swords and clubs like I'm the robber, I'm the thief? No, it's you people who are the thieves and the robbers. But he already said, with swords and clubs to capture me, because you beat your plowshares and your pruning hooks into swords and knives. And now you coming at the person whom you forgot about, and you now label him a thief and a robber. Guess what he said? Day after day, I sat in the temple teaching. He said, man, take a yoke upon me and learn from me. Because what Satan teach you, Satan teaching you, man, it's causing heavy burdens and making you war and fight with them. Guess what he says? He said, I taught teaching your temple, and you did not seize me. You ain't touch me. Because in the book of Sirach, just put it up there. Hasty contention kindled a fire, and hasty fighting shed up blood. That's why they coming at him like that. He said, man, you coming at me with swords and knives and capture me? Because they getting ready to kill him. You looking at me? He said, man, y'all keep a company with adulterers, and you keep company with thieves. Because that's what the chief priests and the elders were. And Yehuda himself. He said, man, y'all forgot about me. Right, so this Yukonai 18, 1-40. After Yahusha had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across Kidron Valley, where they entered a garden. You know, the place where you rest and have quiet. That's what he's supposed to be at. And Judas, his betrayer, who had Satan on the inside, knew the place because Yahusha had often met with his disciples there. So now, Yahusha at peace in the garden. Because that's what you are in the garden. And he's now coming in. Now here comes Judas with a backbiting tongue, slander and gossip. Because remember what we read in the book of Sirach? He said, man, many who had this, hatred and slander, he said they destroyed many who were at peace. He said, man, it destroyed many who were at peace. Why do you think Yahushua in the garden? That's where Yahuwah put him at, because he was at peace, he was quiet. Because that's where you need to go. He said, so Yehuda brought a band of soldiers and officers of the chief priests and the Pharisees, of all those leaders, and they were all with slander and hatred and envy and jealousy. They arrived at the garden carrying lanterns and torches and weapons. Man, you beat your plowshares and your pruning hooks and the swords and knives. Yahushua, knowing all that was coming upon him, stepped forward and asked them, whom are you seeking? Man, who are you coming from? Yahushua Nazareth said, they said, Yahushua, He said, Yahusha another. Yahusha said, I am he. Right? He said, and Judas, his betrayer, was standing there with him. And when Yahusha said, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. So he asked them again, whom are you seeking? Yahusha Nazareth. And they answered, I told you that I am he. Yahusha replied, so if you are looking for me, let these men go. What you looking for? You looking for me? Come get me. Let everybody else go. This was to fulfill the word that was spoken. I have lost not one of those you have given me. Why? Because he said he's going to go out and get his fold, and he's going to bring them back, and they're going to be fruitful and multiply. Because all the other shepherds driven them away. He said, but when you bring back these 12, or these disciples I got here, he's saying, man, they're going to be fruitful and multiply. Verse 10 says, then Shamy'ny Chdash drew his sword and struck the servant at the Hakaon, cutting off his right ear. And the servant's name was Malchus. He said, put your sword back in your sheath. You know why he said that? Because Yahusha said to Chdash, shall I not drink of the cup my father has given me? Yeah, put your sword back in your sheath. Then the band of soldiers with its commanders and officers, the Yahudim, arrested Yahusha and bound him. They brought him first to Annas, who was a father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high Kohen that year. And Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Yahudim that it would be better if one man died for all the people. Because they were slandering and shed blood. I mean, we need one person to die for all these people. Why? Because they got it from the outer worshippers. Because they would lay it on the scapegoat. And they would send it to Azazel. You know what Azazel taught? Swords, knives, and war. How you saying that? They learned it. So this is Matthew 27 to 30. Then the soldiers of the governors took Yahusha into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put on a scarlet robe on him. And they stripped him naked. And twisting a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. Right? And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, Hail, the Malach of the Yahudim. They were mocking him. And they spit on him. And they took a reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of his robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. Right? The same thing. They were mocking him. They did all these things. Right? This book of Sirach, remember we read, if thou blow a spark, it shall be burned. Right? What do you think they're doing? They're all coming out of their mouth. And if thou spit upon it, it shall be quenched. So they created a spark. After they did all that, they started mocking him. They created a spark by blowing on it. And then they spit on him. And they quenched it. Why? Because once they did that, then they put his own clothes back on him. Because you can't put your clothes back on somebody if you start a fire on him. Because if they would have kept the fire burning, he wouldn't be able to put his clothes back on. Because once they spit on him and they put out the fire, then they would have put his clothes back on and take him to be crucified. That's like somebody being burnt at the stake. You know how people get burned? Then they put the fire on, they put him back on and dress him back up, and then they let him be crucified. Because they couldn't touch it if he was on fire. And guess what it says? And it shall be quenched. And both of these come out of thy mouth. Because out of the heart comes slander, malice, hatred, envy, adultery, fornication. Man, you see adulterers and you pleased with them. He said, you adulterous people. You know what they're doing right here? What causes quarrels and fights among you? Is it not the things that warn your members? What do you think they're doing right here? He said, you adulterous people. He said, you see adulterers and you see what they do to me? You see what they're doing to me? And you pleased with them. He's like, you pleased with these people. Right? Sirach 28 through 30. It says, mockery and reproach are from the proud. That's what they were doing. But vengeance as a lion shall lie in wait for them. They that rejoice at the fall of the righteous shall be taken in a snare, and anguish shall consume them before they die. Why do you think he's taken in the snare? And he's in anguish. Because they were rejoicing at the fall of the righteous. So he had to go in anguish, and he's had to do all that before he died. Guess what it says? Malice and wrath, even these are abominations, and a sinful man, woman, or child shall have them both. So malice, they cleave to Satan, and they got wrathful, and he said these are abominations. So mockery is teasing in the contemptuous language or behavior, directing at a particular person or thing in an absurd misrepresentation or imitation of something. Hail, Malaka the Yahudim, they stripped him and put him in a robe, and they beat him and spit him in the face. They were just mimicking him, mocking him, imitating him. That's what they were doing. He said a sinful man has them both. Now you see why he had to endure it. He had to endure that pain and that suffering to get that off of you. Sirach 10:12. The beginning of pride is when one departed from Yahuwah, and his heart is turned away from his maker. You forgot about me. Sirach 3:28. In punishment of the proud there is no remedy. What happens? For the plant of wickedness have taken root in him. It's time to root up, to pluck up what's been planted. Somebody, he says, lamad it. Somebody taught it to you. It's time to root up what's been planted. It's time to root it out of your mind. What do you mean? What do you mean? Teasing, contemptuous language or behavior directed at a particular person or thing, an absurd misrepresentation, an imitation of something. That's what it is, Yahushua. You gotta pluck up these things out of your mind. He said, math and malice is an abomination. He said, you gotta take this out. The proud, mockery. You gotta take this. You gotta pluck this tree up. Cause he said the proud. He said ain't no remedy. He said ain't no remedy. Right? He said there ain't no remedy. Matthew 27:11-26. Now Yahushua stood before the governor, and the governor asked, "Are you the Malach of Yahudim?" Yahushua said, "You have said so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. He said, man, a person who listens to a backbiting tongue, he said, man, they'll never find rest or quiet. Why do you think he's being quiet right here? So you can find rest and quiet. Then Pilate said, do you not hear how many things they testify against you? They slandering, gossiping, things they can't even prove to be true. They doing all these things, slander, malice, maliciousness. They doing all this to him. All these are teachings of Satan. Lamad, right? They were taught it, a war. They warn within themselves. That's why they doing it. But he gave them no answer, man. He said, man, backbiting tongue, they were backbiting. They was like, man, you'll never find me quiet. Not even to a single charge. So the governor was greatly amazed. Man, he was like, man, you way stronger than me. He like, man, I would have been and said something. Now at the feast, the governor was accustomed to release to the crowd any one prisoner whom they wanted. And they had then a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. Right? So when they had gathered Pilate and said to him, whom do you want me to release for you? Barabbas or Yahushua, who is called Mashiach? For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered to him. Who teaches envy? It's all made up with Satan. He said, man, I already know it. You envious of this person. That's the only reason you did it. Besides, while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him. People said, I don't need to listen to my wife. Let's see what he said. Have nothing to do with this righteous man, for I have suffered much because of him today in a dream. You're in the unseen world, inception. Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Yahushua. Man, you see a thief and you plead with him. What do you think Barabbas is? You keep company with adulterers. You adulterous people. He said, you see a thief and you plead with him. And the governor again said to them, which of the two do you want me to release to you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, then what shall I do with Yahushua, who is called Mashiach? They all said, let him be crucified. But they ain't playing. They need him to die. It's expedient that one should die. He need to endure this. Because they see a thief and they please him. They keep coming to adults. He says, man, you sit and speak against he said, you sit and speak against your brother? He said, you slander your own mother's son. What do you think they're doing right here? And he said, why? What evil has he done? But they shouted even the more, let him be crucified. So Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather a riot was beginning, because they warred within themselves. Because that's what war is, stirring up war. That's what a riot is, war. And he took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. They slander to shed blood. See it to yourselves. And all the people answered, his blood be on us and on our children. They slander to shed blood. He said, he that is hastiness to fighting is what? Is going to shed blood. That's what he needed them to do. Because his blood, he said, you are not redeemed with corruptible things, silver and gold, with his precious blood. He needed his blood to be shed in order for you to be redeemed. And he needed people to give a hasty fight and have a hastiness of spirits and the spirit of Satan on the inside in order for that to happen. Then he released to them Barabbas. You see a thief and you plead with him. And having scored Yahusha, he delivered him to be crucified. He that condemneth the just and justifieth the wicked, both in the abomination and in the sight of Yahuwah. He just committed abomination, just like the book of Proverbs said. Mashalik. Right, Matthew 27 and 43. The governor's headquarters, they gathered the whole battalion before him, and they stripped him and put on a scarlet robe on him, and twisted a crown of thorns on his thorns, they put it on his head, and they put a reed in his right hand. Kneeling before him, and they mocked him, because the sinful man have them both. Teasing him. Hail, Malach of the Yahudim, they spit on him, right? Because you quit into fire and you spit on him. And they took a reed and struck him in the head, and they mocked him, and they stripped him and led him away to be crucified. And put his own clothes on him and led him away to be crucified. And as they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name, and they compelled him to carry his cross. And when they had came to the place called Golgotha, which is a place of skull, they offered a wine to drink, wine mixed with gall, because he was thirsty. You mean like sown? It means parched place. He said they that trust in Yahuwah will be like sown. Oh, you mean be like Yahusha? And when he had tasted it, he will not drink it. He's man, the sheep ain't gonna listen to them. I ain't listening to y'all. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them, casting lots. He said, mark this, you who forget Yahuwah, in the book of Psalms 50, lest I tear you apart. That's why they divided his garments, because they forgot Yahuwah, and they tearing him apart. Then they sat down and kept watch over him, and over his head they put a charge against him, which read, this is Yahusha, the king of the Yahudim. And the two robbers who were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left, those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads, saying, you who destroyed the temple and rebuilt it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the son of Yahuwah, come down from the cross. So also the chief priests and the scribes and the elders mocked him, saying, because the sinful men have them both, malice and wrath. He saved others, he cannot save himself. If he is a Malach of the Yashua, let him come down from the cross and we will believe him. He trusts in Elohim, because if you trust in Elohim, you'll be like Saul. You'll have confidence. You'll be secure and safe. He trusts in Elohim, let him deliver him now, if he desires him, Batah. For he said, I am the son of Yahuwah. And the robbers who were crucified with him reviled in the same way. They all agreed. Matthew 27:45 and 56. Now at the 6th and the 9th hour, there was darkness over the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Yahushua cried out with a loud voice, Aliyah, Aliyah, lama sabachthani, my Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? Why have you forgotten about me? Because they forgot about me. That's why. And some of the bystanders hearing it, this man is calling for Aliyah. And one of them at once ran and took a sponge and filled it with sour wine, and put a reed and gave it him to drink. But others said, wait, let's see whether Yahweh will come and save him. And Yahushua cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up the Ruach. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, and from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rock split. And the tombs also were opened, and many dead bodies of the Kodashim who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the Gudah city and appeared to many. And when the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Yahushua, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, truly, this was the son of Yahuwah Elohim. They forgot about me. So I'm crying out to try to get some attention, but you still forgot about me. But the only people that didn't forget about me was the centurion. He said, other sheep I have of this that are not this fold, them I must bring. He said, man, truly, this was the son of Yahuwah. So this is Yohanan 19:28. After this, Yahushua, knowing all that was now finished, he said, to fulfill the scripture, I thirst, because he'd be like Mount Sion. They that trust in Yahuwah would be like Mount Sion. Like a parched, dry, without heat. Thirsty. I mean, you'd be like Mount Sion. He said, I thirst. He may be like a parched place. That's what it means. A jar of sour wine stood there. So they put a sponge of sour wine on a hyssop branch and held it to his mouth. When Yahushua had received the sour wine, he had said, it is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ruach. He said, man, I'm done. I finished all my work. Matter of fact, it's time to rest and be quiet. Just like Bereshit 2:1. Thus the Shamy'n and the earth will finish. Because you say, man, if you listen to a backbiting tongue, man, you'll never find any rest and be quiet. So therefore, I'm gonna do it for you, so you can find rest and quiet. It's finished. Bereshit 2:1. Thus the Shamy'n and the earth will finish, and all those with him. And on the seventh day, Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, finished his work that he had done, and he ceased the Shabbat on the seventh day, and all his work that he had done. So Elohim barak the Shabbat day and made it Chdash. Because in it, Elohim rested from all his work that he had done in creation. He's like, I'm done. It's time to have rest and quiet and security. Because he put me in the garden to do that. Matter of fact, he planted me in the tomb. And he put me there. He put me there. Right, so we know that Shalom is what? Destroy everything, destroy the direction, the teaching, attach to chaos. And we know it equals to 7. He said, man, I'm gonna give you Shalom. Because when you listen to a backbiting tongue, slander, hatred, envy, malice, slander, gossip, man, he said, you ain't never gonna find any peace. You'll never find any quiet or Shalom. So therefore, rest in me and find Shalom. He said, but the sheep ain't listening. I ain't listening to these people. They teaching war and slander and all that. You can't listen to that. He said, man, those who teach it, they don't even know what they've done. Mark 12:28-34. And one of the scribes came up and heard them disputing with one another, seeing that he answered them well, asking him, which commandment is the most important of all? Yahushua answered, the most important is Shema, O Yashua, Yahuwah Elohim is one. There's only one Amunah, one emergent, one Elohim. And you shall love Yahuwah Elohim with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind, and you shall love you with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself, as your own soul. There is no commandment greater than these. And the scribe said, you are right, teacher. You truly said he is one. Man, he said, yeah, that's the truth. And there is no other besides him. And to love him with all heart and all understanding and with all strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself, it's much more than whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. He's like, man, you the truth, man. But you know who don't listen to the teaching of love thy neighbor, you love yourself? Satan. And the spirit of hatred. He teaches all types of slander and gossip. Notice how many people said you right? Just one person. Out of all the people that was standing there, only one person actually said it. And when Yahushua saw that he answered wisely, he's like, man, he said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of Yahuwah. He said, man, you a candidate. You are running to be in my malkuth, in my mountain. You a candidate. Because he answered what he spoke out of his mouth. Speak these words when you sit in the house, walk by the way, when you lie down, you rise up. Because he said, you are the work of my hand and the power of my thoughts. Because what comes from the heart, comes from the mouth, comes from the heart. And he said, man, your heart is good. He said, you're not far from it. You're almost there. For who shall dwell in my tabernacle? Who shall dwell in my Qahalath? Proverbs 11 and 9. And hypocrite with his mouth or paw destroyeth his neighbor. Because you know, a person who has a teaching of Satan that ain't gonna do Right. And they're going to destroy you, their neighbor, with their mouth, their paw. But through knowledge shall the just be delivered. He said, man, take your look upon it and learn from me. I'm meek and lowly, and you'll find rest for your soul. You listen to other people, he said, man, you'll never find it. He said, what? So the word for a hypocrite with his mouth, destroyed with his paw, is what? That word for mouth is paw, in his mouth. Means of blowing. How do you blow a spark on the fire? With your mouth. And how you spit? With your mouth. He said they call from the same mouth. You can spark a fire, you can blow on the fire, and you can put it out with your spit. It means speech. Right thing he said, you're not far from the kingdom. Because he spoke it with his mouth. He confessed it. If you confess his teachings before men, he said, man, he'll confess you before his Father. That's why he said, you ain't far from the kingdom. He said what? The word for pa is what? The word pa is the 17th letter of the alphabet. You add 1 plus 7 equals the 8. What equals the 8? The Gan, the guardian. He said a hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor. A hypocrite with his mouth destroys his guardian. Because you sparking fires in his guardian, or her guardian, or the child's guardian, in their mind, and now you're sparking fires, and you're blowing with your mouth, and you're even making it more engulfed, and you the one started it. And with that same mouth, you can spit, and put it out. And he says what? So guess what? He said what? When you add up pa, you got 80 and 5 equals to what? 13. 13. 3 to the north, 3 to the south, 3 to the east. And 1 plus 3 is 4. 364, right? 13, a cod. Right? He's saying, man, you destroy my garden. Or you destroy the garden in somebody else. And you destroy their balance, their circumcision, their Karim, their garden. Right? You destroy who they are. You destroy the bar inside of them. You destroy Yahuwah inside of them. Because that's the teachings of Satan. Because he come to kill, steal, and destroy. Why do you think he says you fight against you? He even fights against you. What, you think it'll be no fire exchange? You think it'll be nothing blown up? Right, this is Yahusha. The word for Yahusha, because we know the numerical value equals to 13. Equals to 13. Right, because you know the yod is 10, it beats hand. The ha is 5 equals behold. The woo is 6 equals nail. Right? Or joined. The shen equals devour. And the ayin is 70. But it equals to 370 equals the sea. Behold the hand and the nail. Devour it, and you will see. Yahushua said, if you don't eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in you. But guess who you, when you destroy your neighbor, when you destroy your neighbor? With your mouth. A hypocrite does that. Yahushua said, cast the log out your own eye, you see clearly because it's speck. Are your brother eye, but what happens? You don't destroy your neighbor with your mouth. You destroy Yahushua with your mouth. You crucifying Yahushua with your mouth. And you spitting on him. Again. Right, so you add a numerical value, because you know it's a letter, just 1 through 22. Because those are numerical values, then you just added 1 through 22. You got 1, 5, 6, 21, and 16. Because ayin is 16th letter, alphabet, the 20 shen is the 21st letter, equals to 49, equals to 13. And both the numerical values equal to 26. And guess who you talking about? You talking about Yahushua and his father. Because you dishonor the father, you dishonor the son. You dishonor the son, you dishonor the father. All at the same time when you destroy your neighbor with your tongue. He said a hypocrite does that. You destroy your rear with your tongue, you're a hypocrite. So that word for destroyeth is shakath. He said, you corrupt, you destroy, you corrupt, you ruin, you corrupt, you injure. Remember we talked about backbiting. That's the words or malicious words that cause to injure somebody. He said, the decay, you slandering people. He said, you corrupt, destroy. you ruin a person's mind and life. You quantumly entangling somebody in slander and gossiping and malice about other people, and all those seeds in their mind. And then people say they cast out a virtuous woman or cast a person out or Kayil, and then now they warring within themselves 100, 200, 300 miles away because of something somebody said, or a pastor said, or a teacher said, or a Ra'ah said, or a Moreh said, or a teacher, or a brother, mother, brother, sister, brother, a congregation, a group of people, a bunch of people all joined together, calamity, chaos. They're dealing with what a person did, and then now they're constantly entangled with that person. And as long as they get that plant and that tree in their mind, that person that said it knows it, and they hear it. Because Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter allow people to do all that. And they manipulate you. They say things. They'll post it. They'll do things to try to get you and try to manipulate that plant they plant in your mind to try to alter your emotions. And they have control over your mind. That's witchcraft. That's witchcraft. Instead of making things right like Yahuwah says and say, man, I'm sorry I did that to you. I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I did this to you. I know it was a long time ago. I know it was 10 years ago, 7 years ago. I know it was 5 years ago. I know it was 3 years ago. And all these things, he said, man, you know what? I know it was 5 minutes ago, 3 years ago. I have to make these things right. So I don't want to be in quantum and have you born within yourself. And people saying, have care one for another. People don't care about you who don't do that. And these are the points. These are the things that we have to, people saying you got to deal with in ourselves. Matthew 12:35. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every word they speak. How you say it? For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. So what you speak sparks the fires, and what you speak puts them out. What you speak creates the hastiness of fights and quarreling, and what you speak creates the slander, the gossip, and the malice. It creates that. How do you think Satan got it in your mind? He comes and he injects himself inside of you, and he teaches you, he lamades the war, he creates it by the seeds. And he causes one to speak things out of their mouth and pour out, not only on themselves, on others. Ecclesiastes 5, Qahalath 5:2. Be not rash with your mouth, but let your heart be hasty to, let not your heart be hasty to utter a word before Yahuwah. Now hastiness of spirits, hastiness of fighting. For Yahuwah is in the highest Shamayim, and you are on the Arath. Therefore let your words be few. Yeah, man, why are you pouring out all this? Because it's a point, it's a reason why. This is Aleph Kunuk. Enoch, first Enoch 95:5. Oh, that my eyes were clouds of water, that I could weep over you. Because what comes on the rain and snow? It's his word. Why do you think Yahushua was crying and weeping with tears, and his sweat was like drops of blood when he was getting ready to be crucified? In Yucatan chapter 18. And pour out my tears like a cloud of water. Why do you think Yahuwah doing when he pour out his rain and snow on you? Those are his tears. When he poured out the rain and snow on the earth, that's his tears. And I could rest from the sorrow of my heart. Why do you think Yahuwah said, it is finished? Because he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. He was doing it for you, that you may have peace and rest. Verse 2 says, who has permitted you to practice hatred and wickedness? Who did that? We just read it. You already know who that is. Satan. Satan. Asmodeus, Mustama, Asbaal, the archons, demons, Shadim, hastiness of spirits. Who permitted you to do that? May the judgment overtake you, you sinners. Now you see why, you haters of me. Do not fear the sinners, you who are righteous, for Yahuwah Elohim will give them into your hands again, that you may pass judgment over them as you desire. Because the Kodashim gonna judge the world. Woe to you who pronounce a curse that cannot be loosened. Sorcerers, witchcraft, spells, that's slander, hatred, jealousy, that's slander, gossip, and slander, and malice, and malicious word. All these things, people, you got people bound by your words. And they entangled in your trees and things you sown, and now they 10, 15, 11, 25 years, they can't get loose. Guess what he said he's going to do to you? Healing will therefore be far from you because of your sins. Woe to you who repay evil to your neighbor. So now he putting both people at parties. So the person who did it, now you can't even repay evil for it. You can't even repay evil. For you will be repaid according to your deeds. He said, you know what he said he's going to do to the shepherds who scattered them people? He said, I'm going to get you. Woe to you, false witnesses. Isn't that what backbiting is? And to those who weigh out injustice, why do you think they say, hey man, finally they came up with 2 false witnesses? Why do you think they brought false witnesses to Yahushua? He said, man, finally they came with 2 false witnesses. He said, man, you know what he said? He said he could destroy the temple in 1 day and build it back in 3. What neither further need we have of you? Guess what it says? For you will certainly be destroyed. Why do you think Yahushua was destroyed? For you. Woe to you sinners who, for you pursue the righteous. Why do you think they were pursuing Yahushua? He said, whom do you see? He said, in his eye. He said, I am he. They came out with swords and clubs. For you will be given over and pursued. He said, you men of injustice. And their yokes will be heavy upon you. Why do you think their yoke will be heavy upon you? He said, take your yoke upon me and learn from me. Because all the men who were bringing the swords and clubs, he was like, you, and you. If you heavy and laden and burdened by all what they're making you do and the things that you're doing and things that you're agreeing to, he said, man, just learn from me. I'm meek and lowly, and you'll find rest for your soul. You'll find rest and quiet. It is finished. He said, and your yoke will be heavy upon you. This is Aleph Canute 1:98. I swear to you sinners, by the Chdash one, that all your evil deeds are revealed in Shamayim's, and none of your deeds, what you do of injustice, are covered or hidden. Think not in your ruach or say in your heart and mind that you neither know nor all our sins being, he said, that you neither know nor see all our sins being written down every day in the presence of the Most High Yahuwah. From now on, do know that all your injustices which you have committed unjustly are written down every day until the great day of judgment. People saying, what? Everything you do. Everything one has done. All that, right? And people saying, why? Because it's important. Right? Proverbs, Job 26:13. The sluggard says, there's a lion in the road, and there's a lion in the streets. As the door turns on its hinges, so does a sluggard on his bed. He's like, what are you doing? The sluggard buries his hand in the dish, and it wears him out to bring it back to his mouth. Man, that's how lazy he is. Whoa! The sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. Whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a passing dog by its ears. Why? Because they're going to be slaying slander, gossip, backbiting, how you saying? Malicious words, quarreling, fighting, hatred. That's what you're going to inherit from that quarrel. Like a madman who throws firebrands and arrows and death. That's what you're going to get. Is the man who deceives his neighbor and says, I am joking. You be mocking. Like, you know what he said? Mocking, right? He said, a sinful man have them both. He said, that's what the proud have. For lack of wood, a fire goes out. Because you know that's what happens. For where there is no near ground or a whisperer, quarreling ceases. That's what he said, curse the whisper. As charcoal on hot embers and wooden fire, so is a quarrelsome man or woman killing and strife. Why? Because you blow on the wood, just like we read in the book of Turah, and then you blow on it and you spit on it. And he said both come from the same mouth. The words of the whisperer near God are delicious morsels. They go out into the innermost parts of the belly. That's why people saying, what do you mean breathe out lies? All these things come from your inner man. He said, what? He said, what? Don't go into the belly, go defile, and what comes out? What you throw up? What comes up? That's the most disgusting thing. Verse 23, like the glaze covering the earthen vessel are fervent lips with an evil heart. Whoever hates disguises himself with his lips and harbors deceit in his heart. When he speaks graciously, believe him or her not, for even there are 7 abominations in their heart. Why? Because now you don't got hatred, you don't harbor deceit, so now it's growing. Then it start getting other branches: hatred, jealousy, envy, strife, hate. All these things started growing inside of you, and then now you got a lot more work to do. And you haven't done it because you're a sluggard. He's like, man, you got a lot more work to do because that stuff grew so big. Because you know the word for slugger is astel. It means lazy, slothful, a sluggard. He's like, man, you know what? He's like, man, I don't believe you. Man, you tore on that tree that quick. You know what people say? Well, I've changed that quick. He said, man, I don't believe you. He's like, man, that tree right there, that thing have branches about 30 years, 40 years growing. I mean, it ain't gonna take one day to cut that tree down. You're gonna have to cut down the branches, then you're gonna have to get the logs, you gotta cut the logs down, then you gotta pick it up, then you gotta carry it all the way across the other side, then you gotta grind the power and get ready for firewood and chop it up for the winter. You know how much work that is? Be like, yeah, I did that. Now, it may take you 1 year, you may get one half of it, then you gotta cut another year, and you gotta cut it and use all of it for firewood by the time you get it done. You're like, man, you ain't got that tree out. You just got the root yet? You know it can grow back. This is mostly Proverbs 15:19. The way of a sluggard is like a hedge of thorns and thistles. Why think they give you a crown of thorns? And the path of the upright is on a level highway. Why? Because you now tilled your ground. You done got it all clean. And now it's on a level highway where you can actually walk. And you won't be stumbling and falling and doing all this stuff because it's gone. Proverbs 24:30. I passed by the field of a sluggard, by the vineyard of a man or woman or a child lacking sense. Like you see men, women, children lacking sense. And behold, it was overgrown with thorns. The ground was covered with nettles, and its stones wall was broken down. So you got all this work to do, and the sluggard ain't did it yet. Then I saw and considered. Man, he's like, man, look at here. I looked at all that. I looked at that sluggard. I said, man, look at this thing. You ever walk by a house and you see all this overgrown grass? It just look like you just terrible. He like, or a field. He said, then I saw and considered, and I looked and I received instruction. He said, man, I ain't gonna be like that. He said, a little sleep and a little slumber and a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. He like, man, look at here. All that, look at that. You know what poverty was? Because you ain't have no crops and no plants and nothing to sell. So therefore, being that you're a sluggard, you ain't got nothing inside of your field to sell or give to the poor or to help people or even to gain trade or get any type of wealth. So therefore, he like, man, look at here. If I like you, ain't nothing gonna happen for me. I'm gonna be poor. And guess who's gonna be the person? You know how it says when you gather in your crops, make sure you leave the outskirts and don't gather in everything for the poor and the needy. That's gonna be you, because there's always gonna be a sluggard around. And you know how he said, Yahushua said, the poor you'll never have. The poor is never gonna cease out the land. There's always gonna be a sluggard around, and you're gonna always leave it for them. What do you mean? Why? Because you got to have care one for another, because you know they're lazy and they're sluggard, but you still have to leave some of your prosperity, your things on the outside for the animals and for the poor. He said, don't gather in everything. Don't be greedy. I got another barn. Let me fill the other barn up. Nah, you better leave that stuff out there. Go ahead and leave it out there. I'm going to fill another barn up. Store it up. Then what, they're going to make you stingy, hateful. It ain't going to make you no good or better than the person that's sluggard. So you got to leave everything around so they can eat at the same time. This is Proverbs 24:4-5. It is an honor for a man to keep aloof from strife, but every fool will be quarreling. The sluggard or still does not plow in autumn. That's what we in. And he will seek at harvest and have nothing. That's what he said. Yahushua said, don't appear before me empty. He said, you ain't gonna have nothing. The purpose in a man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will what? Draw it out. Right? The word for autumn is correct. It means what? The crop. It says cold winter. That's what we're in now. Ripeness. Harvest time. Autumn. We're getting colder and colder. And the colder and colder it gets, it becomes harder and harder to get outside because it'll be too cold. And the ground will get hard. So it's better to get out there, pull up everything that's in your mind and your thoughts. Pluck up, get the soil ready for the seed time, so you won't be a sluggard. So you be ready to sow the seed, for you be ready to plant the seeds. And that's the only reason you're doing it, right? So this is Songs of Shalomah, Pseudepigrapha, Volume 2, 1 through 6. Yahuwah, save my soul, from the criminal and the wicked, man and woman, from the criminal and slandering tongue that speaks lies and deceit. Why do you think he said, Yahuwah Elohim, why hast thou forsaken me? He's like, man, save me from the slandering tongue that speak lies and deceit. Who teaches slander? Satan. And he calls other people to do it, saying words to ruin your reputation. He said, man, save me from these people. The words of the wicked man's tongue are twisted so many ways. They are as a fire among a people which scorches beauty. Man, it'll change your countenance. What do you mean scorches beauty? Man, it'll scorch your, scorches, that's burning. Now you know how I said, we talk about the actual fire that's kindling. And then it burns, and then the same mouth you spit. Like, who you think you're doing it to? He said, you changed the beauty. Why do you think he said he was despised and rejected by men? They plucked out his beard. They beat him in the head with a reed. Why? Because he said it scorches his beauty. He said, man, in the Song of Solomon, as we was talking about, he said, what makes your beloved better than my beloved? He said, man, you could spot, he's so beautiful, man, you could spot him out of 10,000. He said, black like a raven. Not when they beat him up. Guess what it says? Guess what verse 3 says? His visits fills homes with a false tongue. He speaks lying because it makes for hatred. And guess what it says? Cuts down trees of joy. Right? You make a song, and then they want to tear down your tree. Man, that's the how you say? That's the golden calf. They want to tear down your stuff. They don't want your song or your trees of joy. They don't want you to have the joy. They fill your mind with a false tongue. It fills your homes, not only your body, but your actual household. Inflaming criminals by slander. That's what it does. He incites homes to fighting. What do you mean? Hasty fighting. That's what happens. Who gave you, like Book of Enoch said, who gave you permission to follow hatred? Satan sows that in people's mind, and they bring your home to fighting. Why do you think in the Greek culture or in Titus he tells me, he said, man, these people teaching things they ought not. They teaching slander, malice, hatred, envy, jealousy, strife, backbiting, lying. They teaching things that they should not. Upsetting whole households. That's what people are doing. That's what people are doing today. He incites homes to fighting. That's what YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, that's what people do all on there. And they did it. And people saying, when did YouTube come out? 2005. So people have been doing that in 2005. Now you see the result. They bring homes to fighting. For his 4 says, may Elohim Yahuwah remove the lips of the criminals in confusion far from the innocent, and may the bones of the slanderers be scattered far from those who fear Yahuwah. Quantum entanglement, right? As far as how you say quantum entanglement, man, you be real far away. But if the person starts to change, they're far away from you. Guess what? What does the other person do? They start to change. Because the person you sowed the seed in, that created the slander and malice and all the things you've done, they change, and now you have to change. Because they have a quantum entanglement with you. That's the only reason you people say, why do people change? That used to be, people wonder why, because you're changed. And that quantum entanglement, they see you, now they're changing, because they're quantumly entangled with you. Okay, so may he destroy the slanderous tongue in what? In flaming fire, far from the devout. Why? Because he has to. The same way you cause a fire in them, he's saying, guess what? I'm going to burn you up too. Verse 5 says, may Yahuwah protect the quiet person. Why? Because now you're at rest and shalom and peace. Who hates injustice, who hates improper judgment. May Yahuwah guide the person who lives peacefully at home. Who live peaceably at home. May the salvation of Yahuwah be upon Yasharal Yaakov, his servant forever. May the wicked person once and for all from before Yahuwah, says, may the wicked person once and for all from Yahuwah, from before Yahuwah, and made Yahuwah devout. Yahuwah's devout inherit Yahuwah's promise. So this is Sirach 28:1. He that revenges shall find vengeance from Yahuwah, and he will surely, he said, he will surely keep his sin in remembrance. All right, so you look at revenging for what people have done. Right? Quantum entanglement, people have done things, people have said things, slander, all these things, and you're far away or you're far away from that person. And now, what is he telling you to do? Verse 2 says, forgive thy neighbor the hurt that he hath done unto thee. Now he's telling you to forgive that person. So shall thy sins also be forgiven when thou prayest. So even though this individual or people, person, individual or pastor, past person, people, teacher, mother, father, sister, brother, son, daughter, husband, wife, brothers, biological, they done things to you, he said you gotta forgive them. Because everybody has sinned. Verse 3 says, one man beareth hatred against another. Who told you to follow hatred? Who gave you permission to do that? And does he seek a pardon from Yahuwah? You got hatred and you trying to get a pardon? You want me to pardon your stuff. He showeth no mercy to a man. People ain't got no mercy in their heart because they follow hatred, which is like himself. And does he ask for forgiveness for his own sin? He just like you. I hope you die. I hope nothing there. I hope you nothing worse. I hope you. Do you think about that? So you think about that. So he says that flesh. He said that he said what? If he that is but flesh nourisheth hatred, who will entreat and pardon his sins? Remember thy end, and let enmity cease, let hatred cease. Remember corruption and death, and abide in the commandments of peace. Because you ain't supposed to be. Who gave you permission to follow hatred? As Enoch said. Who gave you permission to do that? I know I ain't gave you permission to do that. Remember the commandments of the teachings of peace, and bear no malice to thy neighbor. Why? Because Satan, he said you're going to cleave to Baalar and forsake Yahuwah's commandments and follow hatred, and now you following hatred, and now you got malice towards your neighbor. And you forsook farming and plowing, and now you're lazy, and your field is now thorns and thistles, and now you have nothing in the harvest. And then now you look at all of that, Satan, Hashatan, is giggling and laughing and mocking you. Remember the covenant of the highest and wink at ignorance, because ignorance is a great evil. It's a darkness of error. So once know, ignorance perishes. And abstain from strife. And you diminish thy sins. For a furious man will kindle strife. A sinful man disquieted friends, or bring them to anxiety, as we spoke about before, man. And make a debate among them that are at Shalom. Debate. So if you doing all this, and then people listen to you, you just destroyed those who had Shalom, because now the seeds have been sown in their mind, and now they're constantly entangled. But you heard that, you heard this, you heard that. Now all these things. Then Satan coming, yeah, that person, and then the other person too. Yeah, that person too. And then it starts creating more division. You got a whole mind full of warring and fighting, not only with your own stuff, but other people's things, and other things that other people said, and those seeds go in your mind, and you ain't got no Shalom. Your mind ain't got Shalom. Then you carrying it with yourself. Then you go into your household, ain't got no Shalom. Then you go to your children, ain't got no Shalom. Then you got no Shalom with anybody in your relationship. Then you got no Shalom with Yahuwah. You got no Shalom with nobody. And then now you're all over the place. And then now people wonder why the world is in a state. Why people are in a state. Why people are starting to recognize the deceivers in the world. They say, I see you. He said, the sheep ain't gonna listen to you. He's like, well, I already know. You follow Satan. You can get mad all you want. You can say it in a nice, gentle way. You know, Yahuwah said, chapter 49, he said that he gave no permission to follow hatred and strife. You can say it, and you can say it with the most gentlest voice, right? Send it down the rapids, down the river, and down the rapids. And then you go get a nice smoothie and go be at peace. Get you a nice little smoothie. Right? With some plants in it. And be at peace. Because these things that people don't want to deal with. They don't matter you're a man, woman, child, pastor, teacher, evangelist, not even mother, father, sister, brother. It don't matter who you are, what type of human being, what type of title you got. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you are, right? This Colossians, Dead Sea Scrolls 4Q257. These are the paths in the world to enlighten the heart of man. Straighten out in front of him all the paths of justice. Establish in your hearts respect for the precepts of Elohim and the Ruach of meekness, of patience, generous compassion, eternal goodness, intelligence. Understanding, potent wisdom, which trusts in all of these Elohim and depends on his abundant mercy. A Ruach of knowledge and plans of action, of enthusiasm and decrees of justice, and set apart plans with firm purpose and generous compassion. With all the sons of truth, of magnificent purity, which detests all unclean idols, of careful behavior and wisdom concerning everything, of concealment concerning the truth and the mysteries of knowledge. These are the foundations of the spirits and the sons of truth. And the reward of those who walk in it will be healing. He said, man, the root of wickedness has now been planted in your heart. He said that people have the malice and hate. He said there's no remedy. Why? Because your behaviors haven't changed. Once you change your behaviors, then the remedy can be given to you. He says we'll be healing, plentiful peace, plentiful shalom in a long life. He said, my son and daughter, do not forget my teachings. For length of days and long life will be added to you in shalom. Fruitful offspring. He said, man, when I get my sheep back, they're going to be fruitful and multiply. Just like Adam. They're going to be at peace and quiet in the garden where I put them. Within all everlasting barak, eternal enjoyment, endless life, in the crown of kabod and majestic raiment in eternal life. However, the ruach of deceit belongs greed. That's what you see today. Sluggish is the service of justice, wickedness, falsehood. Who gave you the permission to do that? Pride. Who gave you pride? Who gave you permission? Hardiness of heart, dishonesty, trickery, cruelty, much insecurity, impatience, much foolishness, impudent enthusiasm for appalling acts, performing a lustful passion. 50 paths in the service of impurity, blasphemous tongue. What comes from the heart defiles the man. What comes from the belly defiles the man. Blindness of eyes, hardness of hearing, stiffness of neck, hardness of heart, in order to walk in the path of darkness and evil cunning. And the visitation of those who walk in it, you're going to get this. You got thorns and thistles. You're lazy. In your mind, you thought you haven't plucked up the trees, the wicked trees, and the plants that are rooted in your mind. So therefore, Malachia, destruction and damnation, by a scorching wrath and the Elohim that revenges, because you ain't supposed to revenge, you're supposed to forgive. For permanent terror and shame, without end, and with humiliation of the destruction of the fire of the dark means. Why do you think it was darkness from the 6th to the 9th hour? And why he says that in his humiliation done by he opened out his mouth? Because when you listen to a backbiting tongue, it's hard to find shalom and be quiet and find rest. In all the ages of the generations, they spend in bitter weeping and harsh evils in the abyss of the darkness until destruction. Without end, without there being a remnant or a survival for them. Galatians 5:19. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual morality, impurity, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissension, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these I warn you, and as I've warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah. Because you're not going to dwell in his temple, in Sahum. You're not going to be in Jerusalem. Because there's all the teachings of Satan. You forsook the commandments of Yahuwah and you followed Satan, Hashatan, and you forsook farming. And you cleave to him. But the fruit of the Ruach is love, joy, shalom, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who belong to Mashiach Yahushua have crucified the flesh in its passions and desires. Right? That's what happens. If we live by the Ruach, let us keep in step with the Ruach. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another and envying one another. Because when you become conceited, you're going to provoke somebody to sin. Conceited is excessively proud of oneself. Vain. Just like a book of, I think it was a book of Levi, he said, or Reuben, or I think it was Reuben, talks about how when somebody gives you a compliment, or they say something about it, he said, don't pay no mind, even if it's a good compliment. Because it'll actually not allow arrogance and conceit to enter your mind. But it says right here, excessively proud of oneself. He said, don't become conceited, because that's what some people are. 1 Corinthians 6, 1 through 11. When one of you has a grievance against another, does he dare go to the law before the unrighteous instead of the Kodashim? Or do you not know that the Kodashim going to judge the world? And if the world is be judged by you, are you incompetent for trivial cases? Do you not know that we who judge Malachim, we are to judge Malachim? How much more than matters pertaining to this life? Because that's just this carnal world. Now you go to the other world, that's a whole nother world. When you judge Malachim, that's a whole nother dimension, another world. Why do you lay before those who have no standing in the body? Right? It says, I say this to your shame. He's like, man, this is your shame. Can it be that there is no one among you wise enough to settle a dispute between brothers or sisters, or man, woman, child, or mother, father, sister, brother, sister, teacher, evangelist, pastors, rabbis, prophets, nabi'im, people with gifts, singers, evangelists, all these things that you see in the world, countries. It's a trivial. They think, man, a dispute with a country, that's a big thing. No, that's trivial. That ain't nothing. When you start going to Malachi, it says dispute between brothers, but brother goes to law against another brother. And that before unbelievers. You going to have lawsuits at all with one another is already a defeat for you. You already lost. You know how I say you go to the game, you already lost. You already lost. Man, you gonna show up, you already lost. It's like Eli's sons when they went to fight the war. They were already screaming, yelling, the Ark of the Covenant, and they got their behind kicked. You already lost. They already lost. Why not rather suffer wrong? Why not rather be defrauded? But you yourselves wrong and defraud even your own brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. Like they just have brothers here, but it's everybody. You wrong everybody. Or do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah? Be not deceived, neither sexually immoral, idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who practice homosexuality, nor thieves, the greedy, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers will inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah. And such were some of you. But you were washed. Does not wisdom flow along like water? Does like rain and snow? So does the word come out of your mouth. You were washed and were sanctified. You were justified in the name of the Aydahchay Yahushua, Mashiach, by the Ruach of our Elohim. He said, right? The word for sexual immoral is pornos. When you look at all this stuff in the world, a prostitute, a fornicator, a whoremonger. He said, y'all ain't doing this no more. Debauchee, a person given to excessive indulgence in sensual pleasure. He said, and such were some of you. Idolatry. That's idolatrous. It means what? An image, a servant, a worship, an idol. Right? So you worship images and likenesses. Right? So he says, such were some of you. Adulterous. That's morkos. Right? It means adulterer, a male, a apostate, a pomamore. He said, you were adulterous. Paramour. Right? And you say, what they got? Paramour, a lover, especially of illicit partner. It says especially the illicit partner of a married person. adulterers, effeminate, homosexuality, right? This is malakos, soft, that is fine clothing. This is a catamite, effeminate soft. A catamite, a boy kept for homosexual practices. Abusers of themselves with mankind. This is what he said. Are cynicoids, a sodomite, an abuser that defiles itself with mankind, right? But a sodomite is a person who engages in sodomy. He says a sodomy, also called a boogery in British English. They say you a booger. Generally refers to either, it says anal intercourse or oral intercourse between people, or sexual activity between a human and another animal. Why he said, why I gotta read this? Because these people are not gonna be there. He said definition of sodomite, someone who engages in sexual copulation, especially a male who engages with copulation with a male or female, male, women, men, and women and women. Sodomite, degenerate, because he made man male and female to be fruitful and multiply. It says pervert, a person whose behavior deviates from what is acceptable, especially sexual behavior. He said these people are not going to be there. Thieves, kleptis, a thief, a stealer, that's Satan. Covetous, pleokinitis, right? Holding, desire, more eager for gain, defrauder. That's what people do. Defrauder is a person who swindles you by means of deception or fraud. Fraud, a wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. They practice fraud for personal gain. That's what a covetous is. When you go to Shamy'ny, Exodus 20:17, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You should not covet your neighbor's wife, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. Why? Because when we talked about a household, it said every man is supposed to love his bride. It consists of multiple things. It ain't just one aspect. But then you see right here, it says covetous. He's saying you swindling, using deception for fraud to take a neighbor's house, and take his wife, his servants, his ox, his donkey, or anything that his. He said you're swindling, right? The word for covet is, in that word is kamad, to desire, to take pleasure and delight, to desire greatly, desirableness. He said these people ain't gonna be there. Why do you think Yahuwah said thou shalt not covet your neighbors, anything that's your neighbors? Delight in, because you know who don't listen to love thy neighbor? Those who work with Satan. He said, man, he got hatred. They don't listen to that commandment saying love your neighbor. Delight in beauty, greatly beloved, to take pleasure in. They covet in those things. They take pleasure in your house, your wife, your servants, your men servants, your ox, your donkey, anything you got. They want it. So the word for, he said drunkards. He said who else is going to be there? Drunkards. Methluos. It means tipsy. Sot drunk. Sot is someone who frequently drinks too much alcohol. I mean, they do it all the time. Tipsy means slightly drunk. Well, I'm slightly, but they have a song called Tipsy. Really tipsy drunk. Slightly. I ain't there. I'm at the borderline, but I ain't all the way there, right? Right? That's when you know you need to stop. Right? The revilers, loiteros, right? Revilers, loiteros, abuser, railer, reviler, blackguard. So you look at a reviler, ain't gonna be there either. That's abusive. That's extremely offensive and insulting. That's like mocking. Habitual violence and cruelty. Revilers is to criticize someone strongly or say unpleasant things to or about someone. That's slander. That's gossip. These are all a part of it. The blackguard is a rude or unscrupulous person. Right? So I'm going to all the definitions of each one. It says rude. It says offensively impolite or ill-mannered. He said, these people, I don't want these people in my garden. He said, you can't come here. The teachings of peace. The city of Shalom is coming from the Shamayim to the earth. You can see he don't want this type of stuff there. Unscrupulous. Someone who behaves in a dishonest or an unethical way. Right? It also means railer. Anyone that uses insulting or reproachful language towards someone. Remember, it comes out of your mouth. Sparks fire, and you can put it out. All the insolent, showing a rude or an arrogant lack of respect. He said, I don't want you there. Reproachful, expressing disapproval or disappointment. He said, man, forgive your neighbor that done the wrong to you. For how shall you ask Yahuwah to forgive you? Aren't you flesh too? So, here's Aydah Shmuel. We looked at the word rail, right? Aydah Shmuel 24:14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, behold, Daud sent messengers out in the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at him. He said, these people ain't gonna be there. Why did he kill Nabal? That means to what? To scream, to shriek, to rail, to scream. He said, man, you yelled at my master. You yelled at him. He said, you're not gonna be there. He said, I don't want you there. He said, rail. The word for extortioner is what? Harpax. It means what? Rapacious, ravening, extortion. It means rapacious, aggressively greedy or grasping. That's what it means. That's what rapacious means. Ravening means the devouring, incuriant, gluttonous, greedy, hoggish. He said, you're not going to be there. You're a hogger. You're a hoggish. You're like a pig. You're an extortioner for money and greed. Extortion is the crime of obtaining something from someone, especially money, by using force or threats. Well, you better pay that. I'm going to kick you out of here or doing something. He said, man, you ain't going to be there. You're an extortioner. You better pay me your money. How you say? Or they say, pay me your tithe. Right? He said, man, you're an extortioner by threats. If you don't pay it, you're going to the lake of fire. And you slander to shed blood. He says he has been charged with extortion and abusing his powers. Blackmail. By oppression. He's like, man, you're not going to be there. He said, no, you're not. He said he considers these unrighteous behaviors. He said, you're not going to be there. This is Colossians 3:1. If you then have been raised with Mashiach, seek those things which are above, where Mashiach is seated at the right hand of Elohim. Set your minds on things above and not on things on the earth. For you have died and your life is hidden in Mashiach Elohim. When Mashiach, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in Kabod. Put to death, therefore, the earthly in you. Pluck up these things out of your mind. So you read all those things. These are the things you need to pluck up if you have them out of your consciousness. Sexual morality. Impurity, passion, evil desires, covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these, the wrath of Yahuwah is coming. In these you 2 months walked, when you were living in them, but now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice. Why you gotta put away malice? Wrath and anger, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. These are all the works of Satan. They work with hatred, with lying. They work with Satan. But love works together with Yahuwah in his Torah. Do not lie one to another, seeing that you have put off the old self and its practices, and have put on a new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge of the image of its creator. Because if you don't do that, if you don't put it away, you're going to be of your father's sake. Here there is no Greek, Yehudi, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free, but Mashiach is all in all. But on them, then, put on then as Yahuwah's chosen ones, Chdash and beloved and compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, patience, bearing one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, forgiving each other. So if your neighbor does something to you, he said you got to forgive him. Do you not know you got to entreat for your sins and your prayers want to be answered? So therefore you got to forgive him for all the things, or her, or they, or group, or people for what they have done in order for your sins to be forgiven. So Yahuwah must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which bonds everything together in perfect harmony. And let the shalom of Mashiach rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called into one body. And be thankful. And let the word of Mashiach dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom. He said, why are you using quantum entanglement? Because quantum entanglement has everything to do with what happens to people. singing songs and hymns and spiritual songs. Because when you start singing songs and hymns and spiritual songs that counteract that quantum entanglement that has you in a certain state of mind, then it breaks it. With thankfulness in your hearts to Yahuwah. And whatsoever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Aydahchay Yahushua, giving thanks to Yahuwah, the Ab, through him. Sirach 15:11-14. Say not thou, it is through Yahuwah that I fell away. You know how people say you fell away? Yahuwah said, behold, I'm going to tell you to teach you this so you won't fall away. They're going to kick you out. Because when you start saying stuff like that, they're going to kick your behind out. Matter of fact, they already did. For thou oughtest not to do the things that he hated. He said, don't be saying you fell away because of me. Because you doing all this stuff. You slandering, you gossiping, you got malice and hatred. You got malicious words and slander. You can still be the same person. He's a heartless, hatred, envy, strife, complaining, criticism, pride, mumbling, grumbling, complaining. All these things attached. Lying, they all attached with hatred. And you teaching it to other people. But he says, you shouldn't do the things that Yahuwah hate. So you mean you fell away if you do the things Yahuwah hates? People say, I kept a feast day, I kept a day, I went this, I did that, I came on, I traveled across the world, I heard the wisdom and all that, right? But then you got hatred, jealousy, slander, gossip, lying, malice. What good is it? Verse 12 says, say not thou, he have caused me to err. For he have no need of a sinful man. Yahuwah hateth all abomination. And they that fear Elohim, Yahuwah love it not. So, you fear, people say, you fear Elohim? He said, if you fear Elohim, you don't love these stuff. Verse 14 says, he himself made man from the beginning and left him in the hand of his counsel. I made you from the beginning, so you did that. Verse mostly Proverbs 8:13. The fear of Yahuwah is hatred of evil. You gotta hate it. Just like how Satan is a hater of love thy neighbor, you gotta hate Satan. And you gotta hate him inside of people, right? Pride and arrogance and the way of the evil, or the ra'ah, right? Evil and perverted speech I hate. So Yahuwah said you shouldn't do the things he hates. So if you got pride and arrogance, Yahuwah hated. And you fell away. Matter of fact, in the way of evil and perverted speech, he said, I hate. He said, if you have that, I hate it too. Perverted speech is tapuka. If you have a tapuka speech, perversity, a perverse thing, fraud. Right? Perversity is a deliberate desire to behave in an unreasonable and acceptable way. Contrariness, the quality of being contrary to accepted standards or practices. Right? That's profanity. Right? All these are all part of it. Profanity, the F word, like they say, fornication under the consent of the king. That's what it means. But still, it's wrong. Fornication is wrong. And you commit fornication when you do it. Right? The same way when you the S word, of course, we know shitter wood. That's what you offer on the shulchan. But then you look at the culture use it for is something stink. And everybody don't have the knowledge of Yahuwah. So therefore, when you use it, it can be very vile to somebody else. Right? And all these are all part of the B word or all these other things, right? All these are all part of perverted speech. Why? Because he said you're the light of the world. You're supposed to be the light of the world. Right? This is mostly Proverbs 6:16-19. These 6 things Yahuwah hates. He said, man, don't be saying I made you fall away. He said, Yahuwah, you do all the things he hates. Yahuwah hates all of these things. 7 are an abomination, a haughty eyes. That's proud look. Because you know what comes from the proud? Mockery and reproach. He said, a sinful man, woman, or child has them both. A lying tongue, because that's works together with hatred, and hands that shed innocent blood. And when they said they slander to shed blood, he said, look what these people do. They slander to shed blood. He said, man, the blood be upon us and our children. He said, what evil had he done? You know what it says about Yahushua? A heart that devises wicked plans. Man, who gave you permission to follow hatred and wickedness? Who did that? That's what Enoch said. Feet that make haste to run to evil. Or you mean hasty fighting, hasty quarreling, hastiness of spirit. Man, go do it quickly, Judas. He said, don't be getting mad at me. You did the things he hated. And he said a false witness, that's backbiting, who breathe out lies, that's slander. And one who sows discord among brothers. Dysfunctional homes. Brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, households. Oh, you mean, what does he do? The slanderous tongue bring all households to fighting. Isn't that what they do? We just read it in the Psalm of Solomon. They bring households to fighting. That's what slander, gossip, and malice. You got to pluck these things up out of your mind. The person who sowed it in your consciousness, you got to pluck them trees and them seeds out of your mind so he won't have no control over your mind, because that's witchcraft. Because all he got to do is just blow on it and kindle the fire, and you're going to be warned in yourself. I can't believe it. Right? And it's going to be always there. You have to pluck it up. I know it's hard. It's not easy. Because if it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. Like you say, broad is the way to destruction and the hard way to life. Few going to do it. Everybody not going to do it. But it's important. You have to. All right, we almost finished this up. A couple more. It says, therefore, I believe Hebrews 6:1-7. Therefore, let us leave the elementary doctrine of Mashiach Yahusha and go on to maturity, not laying again the foundation of repentance and dead works of the Amunah toward Elohim, and the instructions about washing and laying on of hands and the resurrection of the dead and the eternal judgment. Right? That's what people do. And then they repeat the same thing. They keep repeating it over and over again. Let me lay some oil and do that. Because you're the one, they don't even know that the person laying oil and pouring oil on their head is the one who sowed the slander, who sowed the hatred, who sowed the gossip, the one who sowed the malice, the backbiting, the envy, the jealousy, the strife, the complaining. Because he said, these shepherds, man, you done scattered them, you done driven them away. Because they can't hear no backbiting tongue. He'll scatter you, man, how you going from nation to nation? How you going from nation to nation? I mean, you know, you go from nation to nation, you're going from God to other God. People wonder why everybody want to, because they don't want to be a part of that non-peaceful teaching. How you say, the teachings of peace is what people want. Nobody wants that anymore. Verse 3 says, and this is what we will do if Yahuwah permits. For this, you know what they say? For this it is impossible in the case of those who have been enlightened and have tasted the Shamy'n gift. He said, put away all malice, all hatred, all slander, all strife. That's what Peter said. If you truly have tasted that Yahuwah is good. But if you haven't put these things away, you haven't tasted anything. You haven't tasted that Yahuwah is good. So therefore, he said you have tasted the heavenly gift, and you have shared in Kudash Ruach, and have tasted the goodness of the word of Yahuwah and the power of the age to come. Then have fallen away. What do you mean fallen away? He said, don't blame me. You do all the stuff Yahuwah hates. To restore them again to repentance, since they are crucifying once again the Son of Yahuwah to their own harm. Isn't that what he just did? We talked about, he said, when a hypocrite destroys his neighbor with his tongue. He said, man, you crucifying Yahusha again. He said, what is that equal to? Equal to 13. He said, you a hypocrite. You destroy their neighbor with your your mouth. You weren't doing it to your neighbor. You were doing it to Yahusha. And you were crucifying him afresh, even after you learned Yahushua Mashiach. And you bring him to your own harm. You're doing it to your own self. And you hold him in contempt. You are pleased with a thief. You'll take Barabbas instead of Yahushua. You hold him in contempt. Guess what it says? Verse 7 says, for the land has drunk the rain that falls down on it and produces crop. As rain and snow falls down from Shamy'n, so does the word be that go out of my mouth. It shall not return to me void. It shall accomplish what I sent it to do. Useful to those whose sake it is to cultivate it. Receives a barak from Yahuwah. But if it bears thorns and thistles, where does the thorns and thistles come from? A lazy person's field. Overgrown with thorns and thistles, and astel. It is worthless and near to being cursed. And its end is to be burned. When you burn wood. In the wintertime. In the wintertime, you burn it in the fire so you can be warm. So he's literally saying that one has inherited, understood it, received it, and then you start doing all the things that Yahuwah hates. He's saying you've tasted it and you've fallen away. He said, don't blame me that you did it. And guess what happens? He's saying now you're doing it to your own harm, because what's going to happen to you? Why? Because you know better. So therefore Yahuwah going to punish you. And guess what? You're getting ready to go through the fire. Why did they go through the burning? Because Yahuwah going to put you through the furnace of affliction. And he's going to burn you. He's going to take you through the furnace of affliction. And what happens after that? You can still be saved, though, but you're going to suffer a whole bunch of loss. He said, why? He said, man, please don't say before the messenger in the book of Qahalath. He said that it was a mistake for Yahuwah. He said, man, he don't bear the sword in vain. He said, unless Yahuwah destroy the works of your hands, because you're going to suffer loss. This Bereshit 1:29, Aramaic Targums, Pseudo Jonathan. Yahuwah Elohim said, behold, I have given you every green plant whose seed is sown, that is upon the face of the earth, and every unfruitful tree for the requirements of building and burning. So if you got thorns and thistles and you lazy and you don't pluck up what is planted and you have nothing in harvest, therefore you are an unfruitful tree and you only made for building and burning. That's why he says thorns and thistles is worthless and near to be cursed, and its end will be burned, because you're an unfruitful tree. Because he said, man, it's impossible to, in the case of those who are enlightened, to renew you to repentance, because you can't repent for things that you already know. Because you're just going to get punished. Like, you know how parents say, I already told you that already. I told you that how many times? 3 times. I'm going to beat you over 100. And I'm going to beat you. I'm going to keep beating you. You're going to lose something. You're going to lose things, and guess what? I'm going to beat you until I'm done. Because you know Yahuwah is great in compassion. But if you fall in the hands of like these humans, they be like, never, never, never. Right? But like David said, man, Yahuwah, let me fall in your hands. I know I did wrong. And whatever happens, Yahuwah, you're just, right? And you let it happen, and then you understand why it happened. You ain't gonna be like, I don't know why it happened. No, you know why it happened. It says, in every tree which there is fruit, whose seed is sown, shall be for your food, right? So he used those for building and burning. This Hanuk 99:11 through 13. Woe to you who spreads evil among your neighbors, for you will be slain in Sheol. So you're going to be burned in Sheol, like you are an unfruitful tree. Woe to you who make foundations for sin and deception, and who cause bitterness on the earth. Who cause bitterness on the earth? You got all these people bitter and resentment, for by it they shall be consumed. You causing all this bitterness on the earth. That's what Satan do. That's what slander does. Regard. Verse 13, woe to you who build your houses by the labor of another. Because you're supposed to do the work. Because you see a whole land filled with stones and thorns and thistles, and you want somebody to do it for you. No, you need to do it. A lazy person ain't going to, they say, man, they can't even lift their hand up to their mouth. You build houses and labor of another, and whose building material is nothing but bricks and stones of sin. Well, he said, what are you doing? You building your house by the labors of another? He said, you better do your own labor. He said, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. He said, Shamy'ny is my throne, the earth is my footstool. What house will you build for me? Not what somebody else gonna build for you. What you gonna build in your body? What you creating from me? Bricks and stones of sin. I tell you that you will have no peace, shalom, because you ain't gonna do the work to build the house for yourself. And what you building with, you're gonna be building with stones and sin, because you ain't gonna do the labor work, which means you forsook farming, you forsook construction, you forsook the very things that's gonna construct you. Why? He said, woe to you, spread evil to your neighbor, you will be slain in Sheol. People are like, what? You gonna build with somebody who spreads evil? You gonna build with the materials that somebody uses to spread evil to their neighbor? You gonna build with that? With bitterness? Who causing bitterness on earth? Book of Kazum talks about Malachi with a great stone, and what happened? He said, man, all the water's bitter. What do you think out here today? He said, you gonna build on the stuff again. Now you're gonna have to put the work in. You're going to have to put the work in, and you got to do it. Verse 10, 24 through 27. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love doing good works. Not neglecting to meet together. It says habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day dawning near. Right? He's saying, why are you saying neglecting to meet together? Why? Because Satan, what does he want to do? He wants to divide. He wants to divide and conquer. He doesn't want people to actually, understand certain things. Right? But it says right here, for if we go on sinning deliberately, so you're gonna go slander somebody, you're gonna go gossip about somebody, you're gonna go with malice, you're gonna commit adultery, fornication, you're gonna have anger and wrath and hatred, you're gonna stir up wars and fighting, you're gonna slander, you're gonna shed innocent blood, you're gonna mistreat people, you're gonna do this willingly. After you see the knowledge of the truth, there remains no sacrifice for sins, for it's impossible for once enlightened who takes the Shamy'ny gift and the Ruach to come to renew you to repentance. He's like, you doing this on purpose. But fearful expectation of judgment, you finna get judged. Yahuwah is going to get you. There's no escaping it. There's no more sacrifice. You can't get enlightened again and be like, yeah, I never knew this. I'm ignorant. There ain't no more of that no more. He like, I'm going to get you. He says, and a fury of fire that will consume the adversary, because you're an unfruitful tree. So therefore, I'm going to burn you. And if you wait, and if you allow me to take you through the furnace of affliction, you still can be saved. But you're going to lose some stuff. And if you keep doing it until you die, therefore, I'm going to get you in the next life. Just like he told in the book of Judges, when they made that idol to Yasharal and called him to sin. And Gideon did that. He said, man, you know what? I'm going to let him see his grandchildren. I'm going to let him see all the things he got. But in the next time, I'm going to get him once and for all. In the book of Aramaic Torah. He said, I'll get you there. This is Canute 94. Canute 94. And now I say to you, the righteous, do not walk in the path of the wicked and in violence, nor in the path of death. And do not approach them, lest you be destroyed. But love and choose for yourselves righteousness and pleasing life, and walk in the path of shalom, peace, so that you may live and have joy. And hold fast to my words in the thoughts of your hearts, and do not let them be eradicated. For I know that sinners will deceive men and treat wisdom wickedly. They're gonna do that. What do you think they do? But they don't like hukmah. They don't like wisdom. Why? Because it's making you search your inner man. They're gonna treat sinners will deceive men and treat wisdom wickedly. That's what they do. Whether man, woman, or child, if you got it, they're gonna treat you wickedly. So that she will not find a place, and all kinds of temptations will not cease. That's the only reason they don't want you to have it inside, because all the things ain't gonna cease. Your war and your fight ain't gonna cease. You ain't gonna have no peace. Sirach 25:1. In three things I was beautified and stood up beautiful before Yahuwah and men: the unity of brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, children, everybody, everybody, the love of your neighbors, and a man and a wife that agree together. So are we ugly or are we beautiful? Collectively. He said, man, are we ugly or are we beautiful? Right? Let yourself be the judge of that. Sirach 37:27-28. My daughter, prove thy soul. My son and daughter, prove thy soul in this life, and see what is evil for it. You see there's a lot of evil stuff. And give not that unto it. For all things are not profitable for all men. Slander. I can't hear no slander. I can't hear malice. I can't hear gossip and backbite. I can't, like jealousy, envy, hatred, strife, complaining. I can't hear, people who say they right is using profanity or lying, or you can't hear that anymore. It's not profitable for all things are not profitable for all men, women, or children. Neither have every soul pleasure in everything. People probably force you to have like that. you just think about things in your life, right? Going up to this point. Sirach 23:1. Yahuwah, the father and governor of my whole life, leave me not to their counsels, and let me not fall by them. All that stuff that people do, and men, women, and children do. Pastors and teachers and evangelists and people with slander and hatred and all these things they do. He said, man, let me not fall by their counsels. That's what they sowing in people. He said, let me not fall. But he said, don't be saying it's my fault. You would like, don't be saying my fault, because you do the things that I hate. You're the reason you fell away. It ain't got nothing to do with me. And when you get punished for it, that's your own fault. Right? This Mashali Proverbs 16:31. Gray hair is a crown of kabod. It is gained in a righteous life. Whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his ruach than he who takes a city. The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from Yahuwah. Gray hair is a crown kabod. It's gained through a righteous life, right? So Wisdom of Solomon 4:8-9. For honorable age is not that which is standing in length of time, nor that is measured by number of years, but wisdom, because they're going to treat wisdom, sinners going to treat wisdom wickedly, is the gray hair unto men. And an unspotted life is old age. It don't matter how old you are. If you got wisdom and you have an unspotted life, you are ancient. You are gray hair, and he's supposed to rise before our hoary head. It doesn't matter. He was like, what? Sirach 18:18-19. My son, gather instruction from thy youth, and so shall thou find wisdom in thine old age. Come unto her as one that ploweth and soweth, and wait for her good fruits. For thou shalt find toil and much laboring about her. Because you gotta do the work. You're gonna build a house with somebody else's labor. She's gonna be building the stones of sin. You gotta do it. But thou shalt eat the fruits, right, son? Because you got to do the laborer's work. He said, don't do it. Sirach 7:5. Hate not laborer's work, neither farming, which Yahuwah hath ordained. If you hate laborer's work, you ain't going to build no house. You ain't going to pluck up the thorns and the thistles. And you ain't going to plow, you ain't going to pluck up what is planted. And Yahuwah ordained this. He said, who gave you permission to follow hatred and wickedness? Because wickedness, he said, they're going to treat wisdom wickedly. He said, who gave you permission to do that? But he said, don't forsake laborer's work. You're not supposed to. It's laborious to go from your time you've been born until now and pluck up what is planted, and all of the seeds and the things that's sown in your mind from people and interactions in your life and the residues of conversations and quantum entanglement. That takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. Right? Two more. And it says, Barak is the child of light, who is wise in mind, for he shall create the Shamy'n. The mind of the wise is a well-plowed field, which giveth forth abundance and plenty. For if thou showest a handful of seeds to a wise man, woman, or child, he will see in his mind an eye field of golden wheat. Ooh, but you see that? I'm already visualizing it. It's already there. Even though I see it, I got a handful of seeds. Once I plant it, I already know it's golden wheat. If thou showest a handful of seeds to a fool, you mean a wicked person, he shall see only, a lazy person, he shall only see what is before him and call them worthless pebbles. He's like, man, this is crazy. Look at all that work I got to do. And as a field of the wise man giveth forth grain and abundance, and in the field of the fool is a harvest only of stones, so it is with our thoughts. So it is with the power of our thoughts. That's why your mind is a very powerful thing, and Satan wants it. That's why you gotta pluck up what is in your consciousness. That's where it says, as the sheaf of the golden wheat lies hidden within the tiny kernel, so is the malkuth of Shamy'n hidden within our thoughts. So if we be filled with power and love and the wisdom of the Malakim of Shamy'n, Father, so shall they carry us to the heavenly seat. But if they be stained with corruption, hatred, who gave you permission, as Enoch said, to follow hatred and wickedness? Who did that? I ain't do that. If it's stained with corruption and ignorance, they shall chain our feet to pillars and pain and suffering. No man can serve two masters. Neither can an evil thought abide in the mind filled with the light of the Torah. He who hath found shalom, peace, with the mind, have learned to soar beyond the realm of the Malakim. Know this shalom with thy heart. fulfill this shalom, peace, with our body. You have to fulfill it with your body, right? Because the teachings of peace, they that trust in Yahuwah will be like Mount Zion, like they're going to be just like Jerusalem, the teachings of shalom. Aleph Yukanan, or 1 John 2:24. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. And if what you heard from the beginning abides in you, inside of you, then you will abide in the Son, the life of the house, and the Father, the strength of the house. Look at the beginning, look at Adam, look at the creation of man, how he put him in the garden, and he put him there to rest and be quiet and at peace. And those who have found this back, got this peace, shalom back, I no longer listen to backbiting tongues, slanderous tongues, hateful speech and hatred. They no longer listen to slander and gossip. They no longer allow these seeds to be sown in their mind. They hate forward mouth. They hate tapuka mouth. They hate perverse mouths. They hate pride and arrogance. They don't follow after falsehood and slander. They don't walk in the paths of darkness. Right? They follow good. They follow shalom and they follow peace. Not only was a believer, but also everyone. But he says, and this is the promise that he made to us, eternal life. Right? Because who's going to dwell in his set apart? Who's going to dwell in his Kudash hill? Who's going to dwell there? Who's going to dwell there? So when we look at this, we look at our life, we look at our understanding, we look at the things we must pluck up and what's in our mind and our consciousness. We seek to do the laborious work continually. And we continually search our mind for unintentional sin. When we look at our things that, if one has done things willingly, you accept your punishment for what you have done. And you may get burned, but at the same time, your life can still be saved. For we live in this world, we are not of it. And the patterns of this world, we are not of it. For the life of Yahushua Mashiach reigns inside of everyone. If one desires to have it in, if you receive it. But if it be stained with corruption and hatred, then you will find yourself not in shalom. For we looking for peace and shalom, we're looking for meekness and temperance. And we look at Yahushua Mashiach, the one, the light of life, who gives life, the one who comes in the image and likeness of his Father. And we look at ourselves, for although immersion Yahushua have put him on. And now you become the walker of light, and you are now those teachings of peace within. For this is eternal life to those who are willing to walk in it. For the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit